Chapter 980. A cold smile flashed across Wu Yunfeng's eyes when he heard Nam Mu's words. With Nam Mu's help, the Li family could be easily destroyed. Wu Yunfeng was secretly pleased, but on the surface he still bowed respectfully and said, "Don't worry, Chosen One. I will gather my Wu family's warriors and follow the Chosen One to flatten the Li family tomorrow." Nam Mu waved his hand when he heard this. Wu Yunfeng glanced at his son without revealing anything, then respectfully left the courtyard. After leaving Nam Mu's place, the worries in Wu Yunfeng's heart were swept away. He did not believe that the Li clan was a match for Nam Mu. Moreover, even if the Li clan had the ability to deal with Nam Mu, would they dare to do so? It should be known that killing a chosen saint was no small matter. The Heavenly Ghost sect would definitely not let the matter rest. At that time, even if the River Falls Sacred Sect intervened, the Heavenly Ghost Sect would not stop. Wu Yunfeng returned to the main hall in the front yard with a cold smile. Immediately, he ordered all the Wu family's warriors to gather. They would head straight to the Li family tomorrow morning. This time, he would not give Li Qi any chance. He did not know that the Wu family had a chosen one like Nam Mu behind them. At this time, Xiao Chun and the others had already settled down in the Li family. Li Qi had also gathered some of the Li family's servants and maids to take care of Xiao Chun and the others. As for Xiao Sheng and the others, they should be arriving in Fire Phoenix City tomorrow. Unlike Li Qi, Xiao Chun did not think much of the Wu family. Therefore, after the Li family's patriarch left, Xiao Chun and the others waited with relaxed hearts for Xiao Sheng and the others to arrive. To put it bluntly, in the Taishan continent, only the Taishan sect could make the sacred palace feel pressured. The other saint sects were nothing. Just the two quasi-saint great sovereigns, Xiao Sheng and Mengjie, were enough to make any saint sect on the Taishan continent bow their heads. A night of silence. On the morning of the second day, the sky had just begun to brighten. From the Wu family, hundreds of people headed straight for the Li family. The people in Fire Phoenix City naturally paid attention to the Wu family's actions. For a moment, many people secretly guessed that the Li family was likely going to be wiped out. The Wu family's goal was to destroy the Li family. Everyone in Fire Phoenix City was aware of this. Regarding this, the city governor's mansion of Fire Phoenix City did not express any opinion. Clearly, they had tacitly approved of the Wu family's actions. Furthermore, according to everyone's guesses, the Wu family might have already given the Shun clan and the city governor's mansion some benefits. As such, the city governor's mansion turned a blind eye to this. The warriors of the Wu family marched towards the Li family. Soon, Li Qi received the news. Li Qi was not surprised by the Wu family's attack. After all, he had returned to Fire Phoenix City. Once Wu Yunfeng learned of the news, he would definitely launch a large-scale attack. Therefore, Li Qi was already mentally prepared. Li Qi's expression was still calm, but he immediately went to find Xiao Chun and told him everything that had happened. Hearing that the Wu family was launching a large-scale attack, Xiao Chun did not say much. He only nodded his head and said, "It's fine. You can return to the backyard. We will take care of everything." Li Qi cannot help much. Therefore, Xiao Chun simply let him return to the backyard and wait. As for Xiao Chun and the rest, they came to the main hall of the Li family's front yard one after another. They drank tea as they waited for the arrival of the Wu family. Sitting in a circle in the main hall, Xiao Chun and the rest looked very relaxed. There was not a single trace of nervousness about the Wu family's attack. The door had already been opened by Xiao Chun. They were only waiting for the arrival of the Wu family. They did not have to wait for long, at most an hour. Suddenly, sounds of footsteps came from outside the Li family's mansion. Hearing the sound, Xiao Chun, who was sitting in the main hall of the Li family, smiled and said, "They are finally here." Following Xiao Chun's words, as expected, the Wu clan directly rushed into the Li clan's mansion. Hundreds of people instantly surrounded the main hall where Xiao Chun and the others were. Soon after, Wu Yunfeng, Wu Zhe, and Mu also strode in. Mu was the leader. Wu Yunfeng and Wu Zhe followed respectfully behind him. Once they entered the Li family's mansion, Wu Yunfeng frowned slightly. This was because he had already seen Xiao Chun and the rest sitting in the main hall. Having never seen Xiao Chun and the rest, Mu guessed that these people should be the mysterious human clan warriors who followed Li Qi. Wu Yunfeng did not feel the slightest bit of nervousness from Xiao Chun and the rest. He was suspicious. However, since Mu was present, it was naturally not up to him to make the decision. Therefore, Wu Yunfeng was secretly on guard as he followed behind Nam Mu and walked directly into the main hall. In the main hall, Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, Long Qing, Saint Mu Tian, and Qin Shuru sat upright. Seeing Mu striding in, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed. At the same time, Mu glanced at Xiao Chun and the rest in the main hall. His face revealed a cold and arrogant smile. "You are the people who followed Li Qi around? You really don't know what's good for you. Tell Li Qi to get his ass out here. I'll definitely flatten the Li family today," Mu said arrogantly, completely disregarding Xiao Chun and the rest. It was as if Xiao Chun and the rest were already dead in his eyes. Xiao Chun smiled faintly in response. "I'm afraid you won't be able to flatten the Li family today. You better think about how to leave this place alive." Xiao Chun could already sense that Mu was at the Tao Emperor's stage. He was clearly not from the Wu family and should be the chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect. He instantly guessed Mu's identity. However, so what if he was a mere chosen? The sacred palace had nothing to fear even if the sect master of the Heavenly Ghost sect descended. At worst, they would just destroy the Heavenly Ghost sect. It was not a difficult matter anyway. They had no fear of Mu. Mu's face darkened when he heard this. Behind him, Wu Zhe had already roared angrily. "Impudent! That chosen Mu is the chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect. How dare you speak to him like that? It looks like you really don't want to live anymore." Wu Zhe directly pointed out Mu's identity. He originally thought that the chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect would be able to shock Xiao Chun and the rest. However, Wu Zhe was clearly overthinking. Xiao Chun and the rest remained seated without a change in expression. Wu Zhe even saw a trace of a disdainful smile on Long Qing's face. A mere chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect wanted to make Xiao Chun and the rest fear him? What a joke. Xiao Chun stood up and smiled at Mu. "So what if he's the chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect? Cut the crap. You better think about how to leave this place alive later." Following Xiao Chen's words, Chun Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru all stood up one after another. Terrifying auras slowly spread from their bodies and instantly enveloped the entire Wu family group in the front yard. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 981. Chun Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru all erupted with terrifying auras. Being enveloped by these auras, the faces of the Wu clan members instantly changed. There was nothing they could do. The Wu clan was just a small clan, and the strongest person in the clan was only Wu Yunfeng, who was at the Tao Emperor realm. Facing the auras of Chun Ling and the others, how could the Wu clan members remain calm? The only person present who could remain calm was Mu. After all, he was the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. Naturally, it was impossible for him to be suppressed by a simple aura. However, although Mu appeared to be calm on the surface, he was actually extremely shocked in his heart. Qin Shuru and the other two girls could be ignored. However, the auras of Chun Ling and Long Qing shocked Mu. They were about the same age as him, but Chun Ling and Long Qing's auras were clearly much stronger than his. After all, Mu was the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. In an instant, Mu was sure that Xiao Chun and the others were definitely not nobodies. Chun Ling and Long Qing had clearly reached the Holy Sun level. Judging from their auras, their strength should be above the Holy Sun of the Heavenly Ghost sect. With such talent and strength, how could these young men and women be ordinary people? How could a merely family be able to invite such a person? Forcing himself to remain calm on the surface, Mu looked at Xiao Chun and asked coldly, "Who exactly are you?" He did not believe that Xiao Chun and the others were the nameless human clan cultivators that Wu Yunfeng had mentioned. It was absolutely impossible. Facing Mu's question, Xiao Chun only replied indifferently, "Someone who wants your life." As he spoke, Chun Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru directly chose to attack. Chun Ling went straight for Wu Yunfeng. As for Long Qing and the other two girls, they rushed out of the main hall. Like tigers entering a flock of sheep, they directly charged into the Wu clan members. Facing Chun Ling's group of 5, the Wu family naturally did not have the ability to resist. Even though the difference in numbers was huge, their strength was not on the same level. However, in just one exchange, the people from the Wus were completely annihilated by the 4 ladies, especially Long Qing. Her terrifying strength caused many of the Wus and ghost clansmen to be scared out of their wits even before they fought. When he saw that the battle was completely one-sided, Namu also had the intention to retreat. He looked at Xiao Chun and forced himself to remain calm as he spoke. "I'm the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect, not a member of the Wu family. The enmity between you and the Wu family has nothing to do with me. If you dare to touch me, the Heavenly Ghost sect will not let you off." He did not have the slightest intention to fight with Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's eyes revealed a look of disdain. Even though Na Mu's words sounded like a threat, he was actually begging for mercy. The battle had just begun, and he had already hurriedly cut ties with the Wu clan. Xiao Chun had to admit that the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect was a little too insignificant to become a holy son with such boldness. In Xiao Chen's opinion, Namu was completely unworthy of the title of holy son. He could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. The storage ring in his hand flashed, and the black dragon sword appeared in his hand. "What's the point of saying all this now? You're the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. Is your IQ so low?" With that, Xiao Chun did not give Namu a chance to reply. He took a step forward and directly used the stampede of the tiger, arriving in front of Namu in a single step. Then, he raised the black dragon Jian Yi in his hand, and a sword edge slashed towards Namu. In the face of Xiao Chen's attack, Namu's eyelids twitched. He did not dare to hesitate at all. He immediately dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding Xiao Chen's sword. Then, he had no choice but to attack. Xiao Chun dealt with Namu, while Chun Ling, Long Qing, and the others were responsible for dealing with the Wu family's numerous ghost clansmen. As for the Heavenly Wood Saint, he sat in his seat from beginning to end, resting with his eyes closed. He did not even lift his eyelids. As a saint, the Heavenly Wood ruler did not participate in the battle. However, he also used his spiritual power to completely envelop the surrounding space. Otherwise, the aftershocks of the battle would spread out and hurt the Li family members in the backyard. In the front yard, Xiao Chun and the others were engaged in a fierce battle. However, the backyard was not affected at all. Even the aftershocks of the battle could only be felt faintly. This was also the first time Xiao Chun fought with a holy son of the Ghost Clan. He originally thought that Namu would give him some pressure. Unfortunately, Xiao Chun clearly overestimated him. The only thing that could pique Xiao Chen's interest was some of the Ghost Clan's superpowers. Among the 100 clans in the world, the Ghost Clan was perhaps the clan with the fastest innate speed. Namu had indeed inherited this characteristic of the Ghost Clan. During the battle, Namu did not display any superpowers, but his figure was always erratic. Even when Xiao Chun used the running tiger, he could not keep up with Namu's speed. The Ghost Clan's figures were ghostly and extremely fast. They were born this way. Today, Xiao Chun could be considered to have experienced it personally. However, other than speed, there was nothing worth mentioning about Namu in other aspects. Whether it was the physical body or the attack power, Namu's performance was very ordinary. There was nothing amazing about him. Relying on his body movement and speed advantage, Namu constantly dodged Xiao Chen's attacks. However, this kind of dodging was obviously not going to last long. Namu was also very clear about this, so he had been looking for an opportunity to escape from the beginning. Xiao Chen had already guessed Namu's thoughts. He slashed out with his sword. Although he missed again, he was not discouraged. He smiled faintly and said, "Until now, you are still thinking of escaping. It seems like you really can't give me any fun. In that case, let's end this." With that, Xiao Chun slashed out a few times. He directly used the Heaven-class lower martial skill, the Square Heaven Sword Shadow. As a Heaven-class lower martial skill, The offensive power of the square Heaven Sword Shadow was indeed a little weak to the current Xiao Chun. However, Xiao Chun did not intend to use the square Heaven Sword Shadow to deal with Namu. The purpose of the square Heaven Sword Shadow was to seal Namu's movements. As expected, under the cover of the sword shadows, Namu's movements were greatly restricted. Xiao Chun accurately grasped Namu's momentary pause. He pointed his finger and directly used the Heaven-class upper martial skill, the Shadow-bearing sword finger. A black sword beam flashed, and a fatal aura instantly enveloped Namu. A look of horror flashed in Namu's eyes. However, this time, before Namu could react, the shadow-bearing sword finger pierced through his glabella. A stream of scarlet blood flowed out from Namu's glabella. Even in death, Namu probably could not believe that he, the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect, would die so easily in the tiny Fire Phoenix city. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 982. His eyes were filled with bewilderment, disbelief, fear, and various other emotions. His vision gradually blurred, and in the end, Mu fell backwards. The holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect had died at the hands of Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun was indeed a little disappointed with Mu, because his strength was a little weak. He did not know what the Heavenly Ghost sect was thinking when such a person could become the Holy Son. Following Mu's death, most of the Wu's men, including Wu Yunfeng, were scared out of their wits. At this moment, Wu Yunfeng's face was filled with astonishment. Impossible. This was absolutely impossible. Mu was the holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. How could he die just like that? Also, that Xiao Chun, how dare he? How dare he kill Mu in such a blatant manner? They could not believe the scene before their eyes. However, no matter how Wu Yunfeng felt, this was the outcome. Mu was dead, and the destruction of the Wu clan was only a matter of time. They did not attack again. Chunling and the other four were more than enough to deal with the few hundred Wu clan members. Just like that, he coldly watched the battle from the sidelines. After about an hour, Long Qing and the other girls had killed all the Wu family members, while Chunling had also killed Wu Yunfeng and Wu Zhe. Although Wu Yunfeng had the cultivation of the Tao Emperor realm, in terms of strength, he was not even comparable to Mu, let alone Chunling. Therefore, killing Wu Yunfeng and his son was not difficult for Chunling. The Wu clan was completely annihilated. After this battle, the Wu clan would definitely disappear from Fire Phoenix City. This was because Wu Yunfeng had gathered all the warriors in the Wu clan in order to take down the Li clan in one fell swoop. Now that all of them were dead, the Wu clan was only left with the old, weak, sick, and disabled. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Xiao Chun was not interested in what would happen next. He directly invited Li Qi to the main hall in the front yard. However, when Li Qi saw the corpses all over the ground, he could not help but be stunned. Patriarchally, everyone from the Wu clan is here. You can decide what to do next. How Li Qi would deal with the remaining members of the Wu clan and its properties was not up to Xiao Chun. A mere property of the Wu clan was not something Xiao Chun was interested in. He might as well give it to the Li clan. Li Qi was stunned when he heard Xiao Chen's words, but he was immediately overjoyed. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Li Qi naturally knew that these people were all the Wu clan's strength. Now that all of them were dead, the Wu clan could be said to be powerless to resist. Li Qi alone was enough to destroy the Wu clan. Just the thought of annexing the Wu family made the Li family the only major family clan in Fire Phoenix City, second only to the City Lord Manor. However, although he was excited, Li Qi also knew that such an outcome was all thanks to the help of Xiao Chun and the rest. Therefore, after taking a deep breath, Li Qi respectfully bowed to Xiao Chun. Young Master Xiao, this time, the Li clan was able to survive because of young Master's help. I have not repaid you for saving my life. How would I dare to covet the Wu clan? I will leave everything in the Wu clan to young Master. Due to the reverence in his heart, Li Qi changed the way he addressed Xiao Chun. However, Xiao Chun did not mind and waved his hand. I'm not interested in a mere Wu clan. You can do as you see fit. As for repaying me, there is no need. Don't we still need your help? Consider this as repaying me. In Xiao Chen's eyes, the Wu clan's small property was not even worth mentioning. Rather than wasting his energy on such a small thing, he might as well just give it to Li Qi. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, although Li Qi had already guessed that this would be the result, he still bowed repeatedly and thanked him. The joy in his heart could not be concealed. After leaving the rest of the matters to Li Qi, Xiao Chun and the rest returned to their residence. They waited for Xiao Sheng and the rest to arrive before heading to the Falling River Saint sect. As for what happened after, they would see when the time came. According to Xiao Chen's plan, they naturally had a train in the Taishan continent. It would be best if they could meet one or two holy sons of the Taishan sect and learn from each other. Xiao Chun and the rest appeared very calm. They did not feel the slightest bit of excitement from the destruction of the Wu clan. However, Li Qi and the Li clan were different. Not only did they escape from death, but they had also turned the tables and destroyed the Wu clan. This made Li Qi and the Li clan extremely excited. Therefore, on that day, Li Qi personally led his men to attack the Wu clan. The two clans had a deep grudge. Now that the Wu clan no longer had any strength to resist, Li Qi naturally would not be courteous. He directly killed everyone in the Wu clan. At the same time, all the properties under the Wu clan's name were transferred to the Li clan. Li Qi did not show any mercy to the Wu clan. A wildfire could not burn it out, and it would grow again with the spring breeze. Li Qi naturally would not give the Wu clan any chance to rise again. While Li Qi was busy dealing with the Wu clan, Xiao Sheng and the rest finally arrived at Fire Phoenix City at noon. Xiao Chun personally went to the city gate to receive them. Then, everyone went to the Li clan together. The starship was still docked in the mountain range. A half-saint elder was left behind to guard it. Xiao Sheng and Mengjia led more than 1,000 disciples from the Wuchen Sacred Hall and the other 3 sacred halls to Fire Phoenix City. After the Li clan arranged accommodations for everyone, Xiao Chun briefly recounted the events of the past few days to Xiao Sheng and Mengjia. When he heard that the Falling River Saint sect was located in the Yunfeng prefecture where everyone was now, Xiao Sheng could not help but laugh. I didn't expect to bump into it by accident. Since that's the case, it will save us a lot of trouble. Let's deal with the Falling River Saint sect first before we travel around the Taishan sect and let the world know of our sacred palace's prowess. Xiao Chun and the rest nodded and laughed when they heard Xiao Sheng's words. Training in the Taishan continent was what Xiao Chun and the rest of the disciples had in mind. Now that Xiao Sheng had said this, it happened to coincide with everyone's thoughts. They planned to head to the Falling River Saint sect the next day. However, Li Qi hurriedly found Xiao Chun in the evening. When he saw that Xiao Chun, Xiao Sheng, Mengjia, and the rest were drinking and chatting in a pavilion in the courtyard, Li Qi respectfully greeted him. Young Master Xiao. Xiao Sheng and Mengjia did not know Li Qi, so they ignored him. However, when Xiao Chun heard this, he replied indifferently. Patriarchally, what's wrong? Seeing that Li Qi's expression did not look good, Xiao Chun guessed that something had happened. Sure enough, when Li Qi heard Xiao Chun's words, he said, Young Master Xiao, people from the City Lord's mansion are here. They say they want to capture Wu Yunfeng's murderer. People from the City Lord's mansion? They want to capture Wu Yunfeng's murderer? Xiao Chun could not help but laugh when he heard this. If that was the case, wouldn't the City Lord's mansion want to capture him and the rest? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 983. Xiao Chun could not help but find it funny that the City Lord's mansion had come after the Wu clan was destroyed. Xiao Chun had heard a little about the City Lord's mansion of Fire Phoenix City from Li Qi. It was the true master of Fire Phoenix City. All along, the City Lord's mansion of Fire Phoenix City had been held by the Shun clan. It could be said that they were the true overlords of Fire Phoenix City. As for the Wu clan and the Li clan, they were merely following behind the City Lord's mansion to beg for a living. All along, the Heavenly Saint sect was located in the Taishan continent and was the only quasi-sage sect on the Taishan continent. Therefore, the Shun clan had always occupied a dominant position in the Taishan continent. Fire Phoenix City was no exception. Xiao Chun smiled when he heard that the City Lord's mansion was coming to capture Wu Yunfeng's murderer. Xiao Sheng also said indifferently, "It seems that the City Lord's mansion and the Wu clan have some relationship." The City Lord's mansion's sudden action was clearly because of the Wu clan. There is probably some unknown relationship between the two parties. Xiao Qin smiled when he heard Xiao Sheng's words. Isn't this exactly what the old ancestor wants? We can use the City Lord's mansion to raise the prestige of our sacred palace. The group had gone to the Taishan continent for two reasons. On one hand, it was to gain experience and see the outside world. However, more importantly, it was to make a name for themselves. The sacred palace had just been established. Compared to the other 6 quasi-sage sects, its reputation was definitely lacking. Since they wanted to establish themselves in the North Star domain, the sacred palace naturally had to compete with the other 6 quasi-sage sections. As such, reputation was very important. Therefore, dealing with the Fallen River Saint sect was just to let the world know of the existence of the sacred palace and to show off the strength of the sacred palace. Xiao Sheng smiled when he heard Xiao Chen's words. He then stood up and said, "You always have a lot of ideas. Let's go. I'll accompany you." After jokingly scolding Xiao Chun took the lead and walked towards the main hall of the front yard. Li Qi, who was at the side, was a little confused. He wanted to remind Xiao Chun that the Castellan mansion was different from the Wu family. Both sides could not be mentioned in the same breath. Although Fire Phoenix City's City Lord Manor did not have any saints, with only a half-saint presiding over it. Unlike the Wu family, the City Lord Manor was controlled by the Shun clan. The Ghost clan's backer, the Night Ghost Pavilion, was located far away from the Taishan continent. Therefore, the Ghost clan was unable to reach the Taishan continent. However, the God clan was completely different. The Taishan continent was the headquarters of the Supreme God sect. If anyone dared to attack the God clan here, they would be courting death. In Li Qi's opinion, Xiao Chun and the others might not be afraid of Saint's sect like the Heavenly Ghost sect due to their own strength. However, a quasi-saint sect like the Supreme God sect was definitely not to be offended. Otherwise, one could imagine the consequences. He wanted to remind Xiao Chun that he could not treat the City Lord Manor the way he treated the Wu family. However, Xiao Chun completely ignored him. Accompanied by Qin Shiru and the other 2 girls, Xiao Chun followed Xiao Sheng out of the courtyard. Only Xiao Chun, Xiao Sheng, and Qin Shiru went to the main hall to meet the people from the City Lord Manor. As for Chen Ling, Long Qing, Meng Jie, and the others from the Sacred Palace, they remained in the backyard, completely ignoring the arrival of the City Lord Manor. Xiao Chun arrived at the main hall in the front yard indifferently. As soon as he entered the main hall, he saw 4 people from the divine race sitting in the main hall. One of them was sitting on the main seat. Judging from his attire, he should be the leader this time. Xiao Chen's guess was right. The divine race person sitting on the main seat was the City Lord of Fire Phoenix City. He was also the only sage-to-be expert in Fire Phoenix City. Seeing Xiao Chun and the others walk over, the City Lord said expressionlessly, "Are you the humans who killed the Wu family's head, Wu Yunfeng?" "That's right." Xiao Chun nodded. He did not even have the intention to explain. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, a cold glint flashed across the eyes of the City Lord on the main seat. He then shouted in a deep voice, "Take them down." Following the City Lord's words, the other 3 Protoss were about to make their move. At this time, Li Qi, who had been chasing after Xiao Chun and the others, rushed into the main hall and directly knelt in front of the City Lord. He said respectfully, "Sir, please forgive me. City Lord, please calm down. This incident with the Wu family is a personal grudge between our families. It has nothing to do with young Master Xiao and the others. I'm willing to compensate. Yes, compensate the City Lord's mansion." The City Lord's mansion had come here to capture Wu Yunfeng's murderer. However, the truth was that they wanted to reap some benefits. The Li family had annexed the Wu family. How could they not give up some benefits? The City Lord's mansion had long been used to taking things by force. Li Qi was also used to such things. Therefore, He went straight to the point and was willing to give up some benefits to the city lord's mansion. As expected, after hearing Li Qi's words, the city lord's expression eased a little. In fact, he did not care about Wu Yunfeng's death. He only cared about how much benefits the city lord's mansion could get. His expression eased. However, before he could say anything, a cold voice came from Xiao Chen's mouth. It's not impossible for you to get benefits. However, I don't know if you have the ability to take them. The situation, which had already calmed down, became tense again as soon as Xiao Chen said that. The city lord was even furious. How dare you? Take them down. Xiao Chen's words completely enraged the city lord. Li Qi's expression changed drastically. He was extremely anxious. The city lord's mansion was not the Wu family. They could not fight recklessly. If the Wu family had the support of the Heavenly Ghost sect, then the city lord's mansion would have the support of the Supreme sect. Furthermore, the Supreme sect base was in the Taishan continent. They did not want to be out of reach like the Night Ghost Pavilion. He wanted to salvage the situation, but the city lord did not give Li Qi any chance. He immediately ordered his men to take down Xiao Chun and the others. However, at this moment, Xiao Sheng, who was standing beside Xiao Chun, slowly stepped forward and said with an extremely cold expression, "You don't even have the right to stand in front of me. If you want to take me down, even Supreme Sovereign Adon of the Supreme sect won't be enough. Kneel down." Xiao Sheng's voice was indifferent. When he heard Xiao Sheng say Adon's name, the city lord was completely exposed. He naturally knew who Adon was. Adon was one of the 3 quasi-saint supreme sovereigns of the Supreme sect. He had never even seen him before, but now this human called him by his name. Instantly, the city lord swore to himself that he would make Xiao Sheng and the others suffer a fate worse than death for daring to insult a quasi-saint supreme sovereign of the Supreme sect. However, the city lord's anger only lasted for a moment. As soon as Xiao Sheng finished speaking, a terrifying pressure surged from his body. In the face of this pressure, the city lord and the other 3 God clan members could not resist at all. With a plop, the 4 of them knelt down in front of Xiao Sheng. "Please collect, vote, recommend." Chapter 984. Just as aura alone was enough to make the city lord and the other divine race experts kneel on the ground. They couldn't even muster the slightest will to resist. In the face of this pressure, the originally arrogant city lord was already sweating profusely. The clothes on his back were completely drenched in sweat. As the city lord of small Fire Phoenix City, he naturally didn't have the qualifications to meet Adon and the other quasi-saint great venerables. He had only heard their names. However, he had seen saints before, and now, the aura arising from Xiao Sheng's body was clearly much more terrifying than the aura of a saint. In front of it, the aura of a holy sun was like a pugilistic world in front of the sea. There was no comparison at all. To be able to become the city lord with such a terrifying aura, he naturally wasn't a fool. He immediately guessed what was going on. Xiao Sheng, the handsome human race expert before him, was actually a quasi-saint great venerate. The city lord's heart sank. This wasn't courting death anymore. It was like the god of longevity hanging himself. The city lord's heart couldn't help but tremble at the thought of taking down a quasi-saint great venerate. But on second thought, the city lord was puzzled. When did a quasi-saint great venerate appear in the human race? Didn't the human race have no quasi-saint sex? In the blink of an eye, countless thoughts appeared in the city lord's mind. Li Qi, on the other hand, was completely dumbfounded, his mind completely blank. Regardless of what the city lord was thinking, Xiao Sheng walked step by step to the main seat where the city lord had been sitting. He sat down and looked down at the city lord who was kneeling in front of him. Xiao Sheng said indifferently, "You're not bad. Even your supreme great venerate, Aten, wouldn't dare to say such words in front of me." In the ears of the city lord, those words sounded like an evil spirit demanding his life. It made his hair stand on end. The city lord repeatedly kowtowed. Blood was already flowing out from his forehead. However, he still didn't have any intention of stopping. As he kowtowed, he spoke in a frightened voice. "Spare me, spare me, spare me." This lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended you. Please forgive this lowly one and let this lowly one go. The city lord was not in the mood to guess Xiao Sheng's identity and why there was a quasi-sage in the human race. The city lord only knew that he was just an ant in front of Xiao Sheng. As long as Xiao Sheng wanted to, he could kill him 100 times with just a finger. He kept kowtowing and admitting his guilt. Seeing this, Xiao Sheng still said indifferently, "The matter of the Wu family ends here. Yes, yes, yes. In the future, Fire Phoenix City will no longer have a Wu family. Never again." Upon hearing that, the city lord hurriedly echoed, "The Wu family's property." Xiao Sheng continued, "The Wu family's businesses belong to the Li family. They all belong to the Li family. City Lord Manor will form an alliance with the Li family in the future. As long as Fire Phoenix City exists, nothing will happen to the Li family," said the city lord hurriedly. "What about the human race of Fire Phoenix City? From now on, the human race of Fire Phoenix City will be the same as the celestial race. No other race will bully them. This lowly one guarantees it." The city lord almost agreed to all of Xiao Sheng's requests. Seeing that the city lord was a sensible person, Xiao Sheng also restrained his aura. However, even without the pressure of the terrifying aura, the city lord did not dare to stand up. He still knelt respectfully in front of Xiao Sheng. Finally, Xiao Sheng said indifferently, "Remember what you said just now. Also, tell Adin that Xiao Sheng of the Sacred Palace is here and wants to help with some matters on the Taishan continent. When the time comes, he will pay a visit to the Taishan sect." "Yes, yes, this lowly one will definitely pass on the message." The city lord nodded repeatedly. However, he kept guessing in his heart. What was the Sacred Palace? Could it be the sect that this quasi-sage belonged to? If that was the case, wouldn't the human race also have a quasi-sage sect? He kept guessing in his heart, but did not dare to show the slightest disrespect on the surface. In the end, when the city lord was almost scared out of his wits, Xiao Sheng had them leave. Seeing the city lord leave with the 3 celestial race experts, Xiao Chen had no doubt that the matter here would soon spread to the ears of the Taishan sect. In addition to the matter of the Fallen River Sacred Sect, it would not be long before all the races on the Taishan continent knew of the existence of the Sacred Palace. They would know that the human race had finally had a quasi-sage sect. Xiao Chun and the others were not worried at all about whether the City Lord Manor would bear a grudge against them. As long as they were not stupid, the City Lord Manor would definitely not dare to do anything to the Leaf family in the future. Even their attitude toward the human race in the city would probably change. Bearing a grudge against a quasi-sage was definitely courting death. After ordering the people from the City Lord's mansion to withdraw, he had someone send Li Qi back to the backyard to rest. Perhaps because the events of tonight were too shocking, Li Qi still hadn't recovered from his shock. He probably didn't expect that the human race actually had a quasi-sage great venerable. After a silent night, early the next morning, Xiao Chun and the others prepared to leave for the Fallen River Sacred Sect. Everyone packed up and prepared to leave Fire Phoenix City. But before they left, Li Qi suddenly rushed to Xiao Sheng and knelt down before Xiao Sheng. He said excitedly, "Li Qi of the human race greets the quasi-sage great sovereign." After a night, Li Qi had clearly improved a lot. At this moment, his heart was filled with excitement. With the emergence of a quasi-sage great sovereign in the human race's status on the Taishan continent would definitely rise significantly. At the very least, it would reach the same level as the ghost race and the beast race. Facing the excited Li Qi, Xiao Sheng said indifferently, "All right, in the future, the human race will no longer fear any other race. Remember, the human race also has a quasi-sage sect called the Sacred Palace." With that, Xiao Sheng and the others soared into the sky and flew in the direction of the Fallen River Sacred Sect. As he watched Xiao Sheng and the others leave, Li Qi kept muttering, "Sacred Palace, Sacred Palace, Sacred Palace. The human race is going to rise. We're really going to rise." Ha ha ha. Li Qi was extremely excited. In the City Lord Manor, the city lord had already sent yesterday's events back to the Supreme Divine Sect through a special channel. However, because he didn't have the qualifications to directly contact the Supreme Divine Sect's upper echelons, it was impossible for him to contact a quasi-sage great sovereign like Adam. Therefore, it would take a few more days for Adam and the other great sovereigns to receive the news. He didn't know how the Supreme Divine Sect would react to this, but when he saw the people of the sacred palace soar into the sky, the city lord murmured with a pensive expression, "Sacred palace? The human race also has a quasi-sage sect. It seems that the North Star realm will be in chaos for a while in the future." Even now, the city lord was still shocked. But as soon as he finished speaking, a divine race guard of the city Lord Manor ran in. "City Lord, there's a group of people flying in the city. Should we stop them?" Flying in the sky above Fire Phoenix City was forbidden, but when the city lord heard the guard's words, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. "Stop your grandpa. If you want to die, find a deserted place. Don't drag me down with you. Scram. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 985. Intercept the people from the sacred palace? Upon hearing the guard's words, the city lord immediately cursed out loud. What a joke. That was a quasi-sage great sovereign. Not to mention flying in the sky above Fire Phoenix City. Even if he destroyed the city lord residence with a slap, it would be a trivial matter. Without any obstructions, the group left Fire Phoenix City. As a small city, Fire Phoenix City did not have a teleportation array. Therefore, they could only rely on their own 2 feet to reach the Fallen River Sacred Sect. The Taishan continent was very large, and martial arts were much more prosperous than the Tiana continent and the Tianshan continent. However, transportation on the Taishan continent was not as convenient as on the Tiana continent. One had to know that almost every city on the Tiana continent had a teleportation array. Numerous teleportation arrays formed a perfect transportation network on the Tiana continent. However, the Taishan continent was different. Although there were many teleportation arrays, the places that these teleportation arrays could reach were very limited. There was basically no room for choice. However, this was normal. The Tiana continent only had the human race, so there was naturally no need to be too vigilant. On the other hand, the Taishan continent was different. There were many races, and each race had their own place to live. As such, it was naturally impossible to use teleportation arrays. After all, it was fine during peacetime. However, if war broke out between races, these teleportation arrays would become the best route of attack. They could only fly to the Fallen River Sacred Sect. Fortunately, it was not far away. It only took half a day from Fire Phoenix City. At dusk, the group finally arrived at the Fallen River Sacred Sect. From afar, they could already see the Fallen River Sacred Sect's mountain gate. The Fallen River Sacred Sect was located by the Fallen River in the Yun Peak Mansion. It was also because of the Fallen River that the Fallen River Sacred Sect's name came about. There was a wide river, and the water was gushing down. On the south bank of the river was where the Falling River Holy Sect was located. Numerous buildings were erected in an orderly manner on the bank. Human race cultivators could be seen flying in the air from time to time, shuttling back and forth between the various buildings. It was quite a lively scene. There were many disciples in the Fallen River Sacred Sect, and all of them were human race. This was also the only sect force formed by human race in the Yun Peak Mansion. In other words, in the Yun Peak Mansion, the River Fall Saints sect was a place that all the human clan warriors yearned for. At the same time, it was also the protector of the human clan warriors. However, over the years, after Wu Chifeng became the sect master of the Fallen River Saints sect, the reputation of the Fallen River Saints sect fell to the bottom. In the eyes of many human clan cultivators, the Fallen River Saints sect was no longer the Fallen River Saints sect of the past. Cowardly, lowly, and oppressing the weak. Facing the saint-level sects of other races, the Falling River Saints sect had repeatedly retreated. But facing the same race, the Falling River Saints sect held their heads high. This caused many human race cultivators to despise them. Looking at the mountain gate of the Fallen River Holy Sect from afar, the Sacred Palace group did not stop and directly flew toward the Fallen River Holy Sect. Just as they were about to approach the Falling River Sacred Sect, they could clearly feel countless auras quickly locking onto Xiao Chun and the others. Evidently, the Falling River Sacred Sect experts had discovered the Sacred Palace group's tracks. These auras firmly locked onto them. Not long after, several figures soared into the sky from the Falling River Sacred Sect and quickly blocked the path of the Sacred Palace group. There were 2 saints in the lead, and there were a few half-saints and over 10 Dao emperors behind them. One of the 2 saints in the lead looked at the Sacred Palace group and shouted as they blocked the path of the Sacred Palace group. "Who are you? Do you know that trespassing into the Falling River Sacred Sect is a crime punishable by death?" They did indeed have the demeanor of a great sect, denouncing them as soon as they arrived. However, Xiaoxing only smiled indifferently when he heard this. "It's just the Falling River Sacred Sect. A crime punishable by death? Haha, what a joke." There was no need to be courteous to the Falling River Sacred Sect. The 2 saints were unable to see through Xiaoxing's cultivation at all when they heard his words, so they immediately flew into a rage. "How dare you? Do you really want to die? You're the ones who want to die. Cut the crap. Gather all the saints of the Falling River Sacred Sect in the main hall. I have something to announce," Xiaoxing said indifferently. Gather all the saints of the Falling River Sacred Sect in the main hall. The 2 saints of the Falling River Sacred Sect were stunned when they heard Xiaoxing's words, but they quickly returned to their senses. For a time, faint spirit energy fluctuations emerged from the 2 saints. Clearly, they were about to make a move. Sensing the spirit energy fluctuations from the 2 saints, Saint Mu Tian and the other saint venerables of the Sacred Palace standing beside, Xiaoxing also took a step forward. Their saint realm auras soared into the sky without restraint. On this trip to the Taishan continent, apart from the 2 quasi-saint great sovereigns, Xiaoxing and Mengjie, as well as Xiao Chun and the other saints, there were also 1,500 disciples, deacons, and elders from the 3 sacred halls. Saint Mu Tian and the other saint venerables were also accompanying them. As soon as Saint Mu Tian and the other saint venerables appeared, their terrifying auras swept across the sky. The 2 saints of the Falling River Sacred Sect immediately paled. The 2 saints were already on guard when 1,000 or so people from the Divine Palace appeared in the Falling River Sacred Sect. Now that there were 5 more saints in the group, the 2 saints immediately raised their guard. 5 saints was already a strong force. However, the 2 sides did not have a chance to make a move. After Saint Mu Tian and the other saints appeared, Xiaoxing slowly walked to the front of the Falling River Sacred Sect and said calmly, "Saints of the Falling River Sacred Sect, Sect Master, I'll give you 10 minutes to come to the main hall and summon me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Xiaoxing's voice was not loud, but with the support of spiritual energy, it quickly spread to every corner of the Falling River Sacred Sect. At this moment, all the disciples and elders in the Falling River Sacred Sect looked up at the sky. They were puzzled and wondered who this person was. What a boastful tone. However, just as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura poured down from the sky. This aura clearly came from Xiaoxing. Faced with the oppression of this aura that far surpassed that of a saint, all the disciples of the Falling River Sacred Sect turned pale and could not help but kneel on the ground. At the same time, all the saints in the Falling River Sacred Sect, including the 2 saints who blocked Xiaoxing's path, turned pale and exclaimed in disbelief. "Say, Quasi-Saint Supreme Sovereign." They exclaimed, but Xiaoxing ignored them. He released his aura and said, "Remember, I want to see everyone in the main hall in 10 minutes. After that, Xiaoxing looked at Saint Mu Tian and the other saints and said, "Go and capture Wang Qifeng and bring him to the main hall. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 986. They were worried that Wang Qifeng would take advantage of the chaos to escape. Upon hearing Xiaoxing's words, Saint Mu Tian and the other 4 nodded and rushed into the Fallen River Saint sect. As Xiao Sheng released his aura, the Saints of the Fallen River Saint sect knew that he was a quasi-saint supreme sovereign. Naturally, no one dared to stop the people from the divine palace. They looked at Xiao Sheng in astonishment. In fact, the two saints of the Fallen River Saint sect had already guessed the group's identity. Only the newly risen sacred palace had a quasi-saint of the human race. They had already guessed that they were from the sacred palace. At the same time, Xiao Sheng looked at the two saints and said indifferently, "Take me to the main hall." His tone was indifferent, but there was a majesty that could not be refused. The two saints of the Fallen River Saint sect were taken aback at first, but they soon bowed respectfully. Naturally, no one dared to stop Xiao Sheng from going to the main hall of the Fallen River Saint sect. Soon, the group arrived outside the main hall under the guidance of the two saints of the Fallen River Saint sect. The disciples and elders of the sacred palace immediately accepted the guards around the main hall, while the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect were directly expelled from the area. In less than 10 breaths of time, the entire area around the main hall of the Fallen River Saint sect was under the control of the sacred palace. Seeing the 1,500 disciples and elders of the sacred palace consciously take over the main hall without Xiao Sheng saying anything, the saints of the Fallen River Saint sect felt helpless and incomparably shocked. They didn't know much about the sacred palace, and it was even their first time seeing people from a sacred palace. However, from the actions of the sacred palace disciples, they could tell that the sacred palace's style of doing things was indeed as domineering as a quasi-saint sect. After the disciples took over the main hall, Xiao Sheng, Mengjie, and Xiao Chun led the way to the main hall. When they arrived at the entrance of the hall, almost all the saints of the Fallen River Saint sect were present, except for a few saints who were no longer in the Fallen River Saint sect. Xiao Chun also saw an old face among the saints from the Falling River Sacred sect. It was the saint who had gone to the heavenly Chen continent with Wang Luo. When he saw Xiao Sheng and the others, the saint was also shocked, but when he saw Mengjie, who was beside Xiao Sheng, his face became extremely solemn. He tried to probe Mengjie's cultivation, but unfortunately, he was unable to see through her cultivation at his current level of cultivation. For a time, the saint started to guess. To be able to walk side by side with the second sage, Xiao Sheng, Mengjie clearly couldn't be an ordinary person. Since she had a cultivation base, and he couldn't sense it at all, there was only one explanation. Perhaps this Mengjie was also a second sage. Two second sage, great venerables. When the saint realized this, he couldn't remain calm anymore. However, in front of Xiao Sheng, he didn't dare to do anything out of line. It could be said that Xiao Sheng and the others strode into the main hall under the escort of many saints from the Fallen River Sacred sect. After entering the main hall, Xiao Sheng saw that there was only one seat on the high platform in the main hall. He immediately said to the saints of the Fallen River Sacred sect, "I'll wait for 2 second sage, great venerables. Go and get another seat." 2 second sage, great venerables. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, everyone present was certain that the beautiful woman who had been following Xiao Sheng was also a second sage, great venerables. The 2 second sage, great venerables made the saints of the Fallen River Sacred sect even more frightened. They nodded repeatedly in response. Soon, another saint prepared another seat on the high platform. Then, Xiao Sheng and Mengjie sat down. Xiao Chun and the others stood on the left and right of Xiao Sheng. As for the saints of the Fallen River Sacred sect, they all stood nervously in the center of the main hall. No one knew what Xiao Sheng was here for. After everyone took their places, Saint Mu Tian, who had left earlier, appeared again and said something to Xiao Sheng via voice transmission. After hearing Saint Mu Tian's words, Xiao Sheng nodded slightly and then looked at the saints of the Fallen River Sacred sect below. "I believe that some of you have already guessed our identities. I am Xiao Sheng, an ancestor of the Sacred Palace. This is also an ancestor of the Sacred Palace. Her name is Mengjie. We are here today to settle some trivial matters. You don't have to panic." First, he introduced everyone's identities. When they heard Xiao Sheng say that they were all from the Sacred Palace, the saints of the Fallen River Sacred sect below felt their hearts tighten. They knew it was true. After confirming that Xiao Sheng and the others were indeed from the sacred palace, the saints didn't dare to say anything. They still waited quietly for Xiao Sheng to speak. Xiao Sheng didn't care about this and directly asked Saint Mu Tian and the others to bring Wang Qifeng up. As Xiao Sheng expected, Wang Qifeng did try to escape after sensing Xiao Sheng's aura. Unfortunately, he was stopped by Saint Mu Tian and the others in the end. Wang Qifeng naturally had no chance of winning against 5 saints. Soon, Wang Qifeng, whose cultivation had been sealed, was brought to the Great Hall with 2 sacred palace saint venerables behind him. Seeing that their sect master was captured, the saints of the Fallen River Sacred Sect didn't dare to speak. At the same time, Xiao Sheng said indifferently from the main seat, "Wang Qifeng, do you know why I'm here today?" Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Wang Qifeng naturally guessed it. However, he still had a puzzled expression on his face. "Please forgive me, Supreme Sovereign. I really don't know how I offended the Sacred Palace." A stubborn duck. Xiao Sheng smiled. "You don't want to admit it? That's fine. I'll tell you. Supreme Sovereign Atom of the Supreme Divine Sect has already been to my Sacred Palace. Do you remember anything now?" Supreme Sovereign Atom of the Supreme Divine Sect had already been to the Sacred Palace. A strange look flashed across Wang Qifeng's eyes. He knew very well that since Xiao Sheng could bring people here, it meant that his identity had been exposed. Wang Qifeng didn't know how, but that wasn't important anymore. Not knowing how to answer Xiao Sheng's question, Wang Qifeng chose to remain silent. Xiao Sheng truthfully told everyone present about the Supreme Divine Sect's visit to the Sacred Palace, as well as what Wang Qifeng had done previously. Hearing that Wang Qifeng wanted to use the Supreme Divine Sect to deal with the Sacred Palace, the dozen or so Supreme Divine Sect saints in the Great Hall were all stunned. A quasi-saint sect had appeared in the human race, but Wang Qifeng still wanted to use the God race to deal with the Sacred Palace. This was simply unbelievable. At the same time, now that Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie had brought the Sacred Palace experts to the Fallen River Sacred Sect, everyone could imagine what was going to happen next. Sure enough, after telling everyone what had happened, Xiao Sheng said indifferently, "Wang Qifeng, I don't want to waste time on nonsense. From today onwards, you will resign from the position of Sect Master of the Fallen River Sacred Sect and cripple your own cultivation. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 987. Wang Qifeng didn't admit what he had done, and Xiao Sheng didn't have any evidence to prove what he had said. However, this wasn't important because Xiao Sheng wasn't here to reason with the Fallen River Holy Sect. The words of the 2 quasi-saint great sovereigns were the best evidence. Regardless of whether Wang Qifeng admitted it or not, he had to give up the position of sect master and cripple his own cultivation. Of course, if he didn't want to, Xiao Sheng wouldn't mind doing it himself. Xiao Sheng's indifferent voice was clearly heard by everyone present. Hearing this, the Fallen River Holy Sect's saint experts were stunned. As for Wang Qifeng, he immediately roared, "I didn't do it. I've never done such a thing. Great Sovereign, how can you believe the words of others so easily?" At this point, Wang Qifeng was forced into a corner and could only struggle. Otherwise, once his cultivation was crippled, he would become a complete cripple. It was precisely because of this that Wang Qifeng didn't care about anything else even when facing the 2 quasi-saint great sovereigns, Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie. Hearing Wang Qifeng's words, Xiao Sheng remained expressionless while Meng Jie directly made her move. She slowly pointed her finger and a golden light flashed and instantly hit Wang Qifeng's abdomen. Wang Qifeng spat out a mouthful of blood and his aura instantly withered. His face was incomparably pale. She crippled Wang Qifeng's cultivation just like that. Seeing this scene, the elders of the Fallen River Holy Sect standing behind Wang Qifeng were stunned. No one expected that Meng Jie, who hadn't said a word from the beginning to the end, would actually cripple Wang Qifeng's cultivation so mercilessly. The Saint Realm cultivation that was exchanged for thousands of years of cultivation was crippled just like that by Meng Jie's finger. Wang Qifeng couldn't help but tremble. He only felt that the world was spinning around him. To think that he, the sect master of the fallen river holy sect, would be reduced to a cripple in the future. This was something that Wang Qifeng couldn't accept. However, no one cared about his thoughts. Meng Jie said indifferently, "You know in your heart whether you're innocent or not. Also, we didn't come here to judge you. There's no need to say so much nonsense. This wasn't a trial. There was neither evidence nor injustice. To put it bluntly, if the sacred palace wants you dead, you must die. Because the sacred palace is a quasi-saint sect, it's that simple." This was an extremely tyrannical sentence. However, there was no problem at all because Meng Jie had the qualifications to say such words. The words of a quasi-sage were the law. Their words were the truth. As soon as he finished speaking, the saints hurriedly bowed. At the same time, Xiao Sheng also spoke up. With that, Xiao Sheng waved his hand. Immediately, the two sacred sovereigns who had been standing behind Wang Qifeng grabbed Wang Qifeng and strode out of the main hall. Since Xiao Sheng had already said that Wang Qifeng would live in the Fallen River Holy Sect, he would naturally be thrown outside to fend for himself. As for where the two saint sovereigns would throw Wang Qifeng, it wasn't something that the crowd cared about. The two quasi-saint supreme sovereigns had completely crippled Wang Qifeng with a few simple words. This was the benefit of strength. In the face of absolute strength, any resistance was pale and powerless. Wang Qifeng was once the sect master of the Fallen River Holy Sect, but he still couldn't resist at all. After dealing with Wang Qifeng, Xiao Sheng looked at the saints of the Fallen River Holy Sect present. After a series of inquiries, Xiao Sheng finally let the Fallen River Holy Sect's Grand Elder take the position of sect master. He had a head full of white hair and looked incomparably old. The Fallen River Holy Sect's Grand Elder was called Fei Chun. He could be said to be the oldest saint of the Fallen River Holy Sect and could be considered a founding member of the Fallen River Holy Sect. The Grand Elder had been a saint of the Fallen River Holy Sect during the previous sect master's reign. This was because the Great Elder had a very high prestige in the Falling River Holy Sect. In fact, his prestige was even higher than Wang Qifeng's. In addition, this person was quite upright. Moreover, his cultivation was the strongest among all the saints of the Falling River Holy Sect. Because of these reasons, Xiao Sheng finally let him succeed the position of sect master. Fei Chen obviously didn't expect to hear Xiao Sheng's words. However, he was already very old. Even though he was at the saint realm, he didn't have much lifespan left. At most, he could only live for 100 years. At that time, if Fei Chun still couldn't break through, he could only turn into a pile of dirt. 100 years of lifespan was equivalent to a lifetime for an ordinary person. However, 100 years was too short for a saint. Since he was already a dying man, Fei Chun didn't covet the position of sect master. He immediately told Xiao Sheng the truth. "Thank you for your kindness, but my lifespan is almost up. I'm afraid I can't take on this great responsibility." Fei Chen rejected. The other saints of the Fallen River Holy Sect didn't find it strange. It was very normal. However, Xiao Sheng smiled nonchalantly. "It's fine. Just do your job well. Since your lifespan is almost up, my sacred palace has treasures that can increase your lifespan. When the time comes, I'll reward you with some. In addition, if you do your best, it won't be difficult for the sacred palace to help you break through to the perfection saint realm." Xiao Sheng was quite satisfied with Fei Chun. As for his lifespan, he didn't have to worry about it. The sacred palace was a quasi-saint sect, so the various cultivation resources it possessed were naturally not something a saint-grade sect could compare to. Moreover, when the sacred palace truly gained a foothold in the North Star boundary in the future, it would definitely obtain a lot of treasures from the other 6 quasi-saint sections. A quasi-sage sect wanted to help a sage expert of sage small perfection realm make a breakthrough to sage great perfection realm. This wasn't a simple matter. However, it wasn't impossible to help. Even if they couldn't, they would have to consume a lot of resources. Frankly speaking, it was a matter of whether it was worth it or not. Xiao Sheng didn't give Fei Chen a chance to refuse. With that, Fei Chun became the new sect master of the Fallen River Holy Sect. After settling the matter of the Fallen River Holy Sect, Xiao Sheng sent away Fei Chun and the other saints of the Fallen River Holy Sect. He naturally left the rest of the matters to them, such as how to explain to the disciples about the change of sect master. He used an extremely domineering method to remove the sect master of the Fallen River Holy Sect. At the same time, the Fallen River Holy Sect became the first saint sect in the North Star boundary to rely on the Sacred Palace. They didn't immediately leave the Fallen River Holy Sect. Instead, they stayed in the Fallen River Holy Sect. It wasn't difficult to arrange accommodations for a mere 1,000 people from the Sacred Palace in the huge Fallen River Holy Sect. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 988. Everyone from the Sacred Palace settled down in the Fallen River Saint sect. At the same time, many disciples and deacons of the Fallen River Saint sect quickly learned about the change in sect master. The former sect master Wang Qifeng's cultivation base was crippled, and he was expelled from the sect. The former great elder, Fei Chun, took over the position of sect master. The disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect did not pay too much attention to the sudden change of sect leader because there was another matter that they were more concerned about. It was precisely because of this that the succession of Fei Chun as the sect leader of the Fallen River Saint sect did not cause the slightest panic in the Fallen River Saint sect. Many disciples quickly accepted this fact. Perhaps in the hearts of many disciples, Fei Chun was obviously more suitable to be sect master. For a few days, the disciples and deacons of the Fallen River Saint sect paid more attention to the Sacred Palace. After some understanding, almost all the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect already knew that the Sacred Palace was a quasi-saint sect founded by the human race. This time, the Sacred Palace was led by 2 quasi-saint great sovereigns. From now on, the Fallen River Saint sect would also be attached to the Sacred Palace and take orders from the Sacred Palace. In addition, the Fallen River Saint sect would offer many benefits to the Sacred Palace every year. A quasi-saint sect was already a heavenly existence for many disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect. And now, such a quasi-saint sect was actually residing in the Fallen River Saint sect. Every day, many disciples stopped and watched from afar at the residence of the Sacred Palace. They were very curious, but at the same time, they didn't dare to provoke the Sacred Palace, so they could only watch from afar. Every time they saw someone wearing the Sacred Palace's disciple uniform walk out of the courtyard or return from outside, the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect couldn't help but reveal a look of longing. Compared to a saint sect, they were naturally more willing to become a disciple of a quasi-saint sect. There was simply no comparison between the two. They were incomparably concerned about the Sacred Palace's every move. At the same time, some disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect also took the initiative to strike up a conversation with the Sacred Palace disciples. From the Sacred Palace disciples, they learned more about the Sacred Palace. Firstly, there was the structure of the Sacred Palace. Aside from the ancestors and holy sovereigns, the Sacred Palace was divided into 10 sacred halls, and the 10 sacred halls were controlled by the 10 chosen of the Sacred Palace. This time, apart from the 5 holy sovereigns, Xiao Sheng, Chenling, and Longqing had come with the 2 ancestors, Xiao Sheng and Mengjie. The disciples of the Fallen River Sacred Sect became even more interested when they heard that there were 3 more chosens from the Sacred Palace. After sparing no effort in investigating, the disciples of the Fallen River Sacred Sect soon obtained information about Xiao Sheng and the other 2. This was especially true when it came to Xiao Chun. After all, he was the first chosen of the Sacred Palace and held a high position. Many disciples were very curious about what kind of person could become the first chosen of the Sacred Palace. It wasn't just the ordinary disciples. Even the chosens and saintesses of the Fallen River Sacred Sect were extremely curious about Xiao Chun. At the same time, not only was Xiao Chun himself curious and envied, but the 3 Qin Shu girls beside Xiao Chun made many disciples of the Fallen River Sacred Sect go crazy. There were already people who were fortunate enough to see the faces of Qin Shu, and the other two girls from afar. It was enough to be described as heavenly beauties. In an instant, all the disciples of the fallen river's sacred sect knew that the first chosen of the sacred palace, Shao Chun, had 3 women by his side. They were all outstanding beauties, and many male disciples were envious of them. Shao Chun and the others ignored the attention of the disciples of the fallen river sacred sect. Over the past few days, Shao Chun and the others had obtained information from the saints of the fallen river sacred sect and had a general understanding of the entire Taishan continent. The Taishan continent was indeed extraordinarily large. It was said to have 999 prefectures. At the same time, these 999 prefectures were divided into 18 prefectures. The area of each prefecture was as large as a sky river continent. In other words, the total area of the Taishan continent was at least equal to 18 sky river continents. This was an exaggeration. On such a vast land, there were many clans that had established their own forces. There were constant disputes, but because of the existence of the Taishan sect, the Shun clan had always been in a dominant position on the Taishan continent. Yunfeng Mansion, which was one of the 999 prefectures, was where the fallen river sacred sect was located. It could only be considered a small place on the entire Taishan continent. According to its geographical location, Yunfeng Mansion was included in the Cloud Prefecture. Shao Chun and the others continued to learn about the Taishan continent. At the same time, they began to plan their journey outside. Just as everyone was planning to go out and train, another saint sect in the Yun Peak Mansion, Heavenly Ghost Sect, finally received news of Holy Son Namu's death. The death of a holy son was naturally not a small matter. Therefore, the Heavenly Ghost Sect immediately sent people to Fire Phoenix City and targeted the Leaf family of Fire Phoenix City. After the destruction of the Wu family and the annexation of all its properties, the Leaf family had become a large family in Fire Phoenix City that was second only to the City Lord Mansion. They thought that the Leaf family would be able to soar into the sky. Little did they know that on this day, the experts of the Heavenly Ghost Sect had arrived, led by 4 saints. Hundreds of Heavenly Ghost Sect disciples rushed into the Leaf family and quickly took control of the Leaf family. Furthermore, the Leaf family's patriarch, Li Qi, and the Leaf family's direct descendants were all brought to the Leaf family's main hall. The 4 saints of the Heavenly Ghost Sect sat on the main seats and looked down at the people of the Leaf family who were kneeling on the ground. Their cultivations had been sealed. One of the Heavenly Ghost Sect saints shouted coldly, "Speak! Who killed Saint Sun Mu of my Heavenly Ghost Sect?" The Heavenly Ghost Sect disciples were not idiots. They knew that the Leaf family was no match for Mu, let alone kill him. Moreover, after the Heavenly Ghost Sect investigation, they found that there was a mysterious force around the Leaf family. It was this force that had destroyed the Wu family. At the same time, Mu had died at their hands. They did not find out the identity of Shao Chun and the others. It was because of this that the people of the Leaf family were able to survive until now. Otherwise, they would have died long ago. In the face of the Heavenly Ghost Sect saints questioning, Li Qi shouted rather unyieldingly, "Hey, it's just Mu. So what if he's dead? If you want to find someone, I can take you there. But do you dare to go?" Li Qi already knew that the Sacred Palace was a quasi-saint sect. He was extremely proud that the human race finally had a quasi-saint sect. Therefore, he no longer bowed before the Heavenly Ghost Sect saint. Humans were like that. Once you had someone to rely on, the fear in your heart would disappear. Just like Li Qi at this moment. Because he believed that the human race had the Sacred Palace behind them, his fear of the ghost race had greatly decreased. He even dared to face the Heavenly Ghost Sect saint directly, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 989. With a backer behind him, he had confidence. Even though he knew that the Leaf family was no match for the Heavenly Ghost Sect, Li Qi was still imagining that if the Heavenly Ghost Sect dared to attack the Leaf family, the Sacred Palace would definitely uproot the Heavenly Ghost Sect in the future. So what if the Ghost Clan had the Night Ghost Pavilion? There wasn't much fear on his face. On the contrary, he gave off a feeling of contempt. In fact, Li Qi's thoughts were very simple. Didn't the Heavenly Ghost sect want to find the person who killed Mu? Fine, I'll take you there, but I'm afraid you won't dare. He didn't think that the Heavenly Ghost sect could do anything to the sacred palace. After all, Xiao Sheng was a quasi-saint supreme sovereign. He alone was enough to destroy the entire Heavenly Ghost sect. The faces of the 4 Heavenly Ghost sect saints on the main seat sank when they heard Li Qi's words. One of them even swung his hand and slapped Li Qi away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and a few of his teeth. Impudent. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to tell me where they went. They went to the Fallen River Saint sect. If you have the ability, go to the Fallen River Saint sect and get them. Li Qi said with difficulty. The Fallen River Saint sect? The 4 saints of the Heavenly Ghost sect immediately roared with laughter when they heard that. Haha, the Fallen River Saint sect? So it's the Fallen River Saint sect. Is that why you were so confident? What, do you think we can't do anything just because it's the Fallen River Saint sect? What a joke. The 4 saints of the Heavenly Ghost sect thought that Li Qi's confidence came from the Fallen River Saint sect and thought to themselves, so it was the Fallen River Saint sect. No wonder. If it wasn't the Fallen River Saint sect, who else could kill the chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect in the Yun Peak Mansion? Thinking that they had found the culprit, the 4 Heavenly Ghost sect saints immediately relaxed. Although the Fallen River Saint sect was also a saint-grade sect, it wasn't worth mentioning in the eyes of the Heavenly Ghost sect. This was because the Fallen River Saint sect's cowardice had made the Sky Valley look down on them more and more. In the eyes of the 4 saints of the Heavenly Ghost sect, perhaps the Fallen River Saint sect would submit as soon as the Heavenly Ghost sect appeared. The Heavenly Ghost sect saint who had sent Li Qi flying with a slap sneered in disdain. I'll spare your life for now. Tomorrow, I'll personally take you to the Falling River Saint sect. I'll let you see how your human race's saint sect grovels and begs for forgiveness in front of my Heavenly Ghost sect. Haha. Perhaps the Sky Ghost sect saint wanted to torture the Leaf family members before he died so that they could see how the human race's Fallen River Sacred sect would kneel before the Sky Ghost sect and beg for mercy. Their target was the Fallen River Saint sect. Early the next morning, the Heavenly Ghost sect left Fire Phoenix City with the Leaf family members and rushed towards the Fallen River Saint sect. The Fire Phoenix City Lord Manor naturally knew about the arrival of the Heavenly Ghost sect experts, but they didn't care. The Heavenly Ghost sect obviously didn't want to offend the Fire Phoenix City Lord Manor. Although the Fire Phoenix City Lord Manor's strength wasn't worth mentioning in the eyes of the Heavenly Ghost sect, the City Lord Manor was the territory of the Shen clan. Just the identity of the Shen clan was enough to make the Heavenly Ghost sect wary. In the Taishan continent, killing a member of the Shen clan, especially one of the Shen clan status, was no small matter. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no sect was willing to offend the Shen clan. As long as the Shen clan didn't provoke them, it would be the best outcome. In the City Lord Manor, the City Lord sneered when he heard that the Heavenly Ghost sect had brought the Leaf family members to the Fallen River Saint sect. Heavenly Ghost sect, you're not taking the path to heaven, but barging into hell. Do you still think the Fallen River Saint sect is the same as before? I think you're courting your own destruction. Many people who didn't know what was going on felt that the Fallen River Saint sect was in trouble when they saw the Heavenly Ghost sect rushing towards the Fallen River Saint sect. However, the City Lord was sure that the Fallen River Saint sect wasn't in trouble this time, but the Heavenly Ghost sect. They didn't know that they were getting closer and closer to death. Along the way, the people of the Heavenly Ghost sect appeared extremely relaxed. To them, going to the Fallen River Saint sect was like going to a pub. With the Fallen River Saint sect's character, they would definitely admit defeat. How would they dare to become enemies with the Heavenly Ghost sect? We can't let the Fallen River Saint sect off easy this time. They actually dared to kill the Holy Son of our Heavenly Ghost sect. That's right. Not only must we make the Fallen River Saint sect compensate, we must also make them hand over a Holy Son for us to deal with. A Holy Son for a Holy Son. That's only fair. That's right. Make the Fallen River Saint sect hand over a Holy Son. Not only did they want the Fallen River Saint sect to compensate, but they also intended to make them hand over a holy son. A life for a life. The four saints of the Heavenly Ghost sect said coldly. They weren't worried that the Fallen River Saints sect would refuse. In fact, the Fallen River Saints sect of the past might not refuse, but it was different now. Would the current Fallen River Saints sect agree to the Heavenly Ghost sect's request? It was hard to say. Soon, the group of Heavenly Ghost sect experts, a group of several hundred people, arrived at the Fallen River Saints sect under the lead of the four saints. After all, the Fallen River Saints sect was on the Fallen River. The new sect master, Fei Chun, led a group of saints and disciples of the Fallen River Saints sect to block the path of the Heavenly Ghost sect. The two sides stood in the air, facing each other. Facing the saints of the Fallen River Saints sect, the Fallen River Saints sect clearly had the upper hand. However, the four saints of the Heavenly Ghost sect didn't care at all. They all had cold smiles on their faces as they looked at Fei Chun. Fei Chun, how would the Fallen River Saints sect explain this to us? Explain? What's there to explain? Fei Chun said indifferently. Old man, it seems like you won't cry until you see the coffin. Your Fallen River Saints sect killed our Heavenly Ghost sect's holy Samu. What? Do you think we don't know? A Heavenly Ghost sect saint shouted. The Heavenly Ghost sect wanted an explanation for killing Mu. Immediately, the Heavenly Ghost sect saint expelled the Heavenly Ghost sect. The first condition was nothing more than compensation. However, the Heavenly Ghost sect was obviously asking for too much this time. In addition to the huge compensation, there was another condition. The Fallen River Saints sect had to hand over a holy son, a life for a life. Otherwise, the Heavenly Ghost sect would declare war on the Fallen River Saints sect. In the past, the Fallen River Sacred sect would definitely choose to keep the peace when faced with the conditions of the Heavenly Ghost sect saint. However, Fei Chen's attitude this time surprised the four elders of the Heavenly Ghost sect. After hearing the Heavenly Ghost sect's conditions, Fei Chen's eyes were overflowing with killing intent. Compensation? The Heavenly Ghost sect thinks too much. You've already come to the Fallen River today, and you still want compensation? I think you'd better think about how to leave alive first. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 990. The Fallen River Saints sect had a total of 15 saints, excluding the one killed by Xiao Sheng on the Heavenly Qin continent and Wang Qifeng, who had his cultivation crippled. The Fallen River Saints sect had 13 saints left. As soon as Fei Chun finished speaking, the saints of the Fallen River Saints sect led their disciples and deacons to surround the Heavenly Ghost sect. There were only a few hundred people from the Heavenly Ghost sect, but there were thousands of experts from the Fallen River Saints sect standing in front of them. These thousands of people were all outstanding talents of the Fallen River Saints sect. The weakest among them was a core disciple. Being surrounded by the Fallen River Saints sect, the four Heavenly Ghost sect saints were stunned for a moment. How could the Fallen River Saints sect dare to do this? Shouldn't they be trying to keep the peace? They didn't expect the Falling River Sacred sect to have such a reaction. In this regard, Li Qi and the other members of the Li family, who were controlled by the Heavenly Ghost sect, sneered in their hearts. Idiots, do you think the Falling River Sacred sect is still the Falling River Sacred sect of the past? With the support of the Sacred Palace, why would the Fallen River Saints sect be afraid of the Heavenly Ghost sect? Seeing that Fei Chun really dared to attack, the four Heavenly Ghost sect saints were confused and panicked. They immediately shouted angrily, Fei Chun, how dare you attack us? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Ghost sect will destroy the Fallen River Saints sect? Let Wang Qifeng come out. I'd like to see who gave him the courage to start a war with the Heavenly Ghost sect. Fei Chun didn't see Wang Qifeng, but he sneered when he heard the Heavenly Ghost sect saints' angry shout. We're all saint sects. The Fallen River Saints sect isn't afraid of the Heavenly Ghost sect. Cut the crap. If you want to live, let those humans go first. Fei Chun shouted coldly when he saw Li Qi and the others being controlled by the Heavenly Ghost sect disciples. Both sides were at daggers drawn. The Heavenly Ghost sect didn't expect such a situation. How could the cowardly Fallen River Saint sect be so domineering today? In the past, when the Fallen River Saint sect disciples met the Heavenly Ghost sect disciples, they would hide far away. If they couldn't, they would treat them with respect. But now, the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect were like hungry wolves staring at their prey. The ferocious glint in their eyes made it seem as if they couldn't wait to tear apart the disciples of the Sky Ghost sect. Things were a little strange. However, just as the four Sky Ghost sect saints were feeling depressed, three young men in long black robes walked out from beside them. Black robes were the attire of the Heavenly Ghost sect's holy sons, which meant that these three young men were the holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect. There were a total of 4 holy sons in the Heavenly Ghost sect. However, Mu had died and there were only 3 left. This time, all 3 of the holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect had come along. The young man in the middle took a step forward and stood in front of Fei Chun as he spoke in an indifferent tone. Since when did the Fallen River Saint sect have the guts to make a move? Fine, bring it on. I would like to see if the Fallen River Saint sect has the guts to do so. The young man was the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. After he spoke, he turned to look at the 4 holy sons of the Fallen River Saint sect beside Fei Chun. As the holy sons of the 2 great sects in the Yun Peak Prefecture, they naturally knew each other. The young man stared at the 4 holy sons of the Fallen River Saint sect and smiled disdainfully. If you want to fight, my Heavenly Ghost sect will take you on. Come on, which of you 4 trash will go first? They were all holy sons, but the young man directly called the 4 holy sons of the Fallen River Saint sect trash. The 4 holy sons of the Fallen River Saint sect were furious, but they couldn't refute because their strength was indeed inferior to the young man in front of them. Seeing that the holy son of the Fallen River Saint sect didn't dare to reply, the 3 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect revealed a mocking expression. With the appearance of the 3 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect, the Fallen River Saint sect was obviously completely crushed in the contest between the holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect. Moreover, the fear and cowardice of the Heavenly Ghost sect had been deeply ingrained in the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect for so many years. Although they already had the support of the Saint Palace, it was obviously unrealistic to want to instantly reverse the fear and cowardice that had been deeply ingrained in their bones. Following the silence of the holy sons of the Fallen River Saint sect, the momentum of the disciples on their side was greatly reduced. Sensing the change in the Fallen River Saint sect, the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect laughed. If you want to become the master, you have to know your own weight. Since you're a dog, don't fantasize about other things. The disdain in his words was undisguised. The momentum of his side was completely suppressed, and the coldness in Fei Chen's eyes grew stronger. However, just as the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect finished speaking, an indifferent voice sounded. You're right. Since you're a dog, don't fantasize about other things. Following this voice, 3 young men wearing golden robes with a huge saint word embroidered on the back appeared in front of the 3 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect. The 3 people who suddenly appeared were none other than Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing. Seeing Xiao Chun and the other 2 appear, the eyes of the Fallen River Saint sect disciples revealed a trace of fanaticism and anticipation. Over the past few days, the admiration of the Fallen River Saint sect disciples for Xiao Chun and the other 2 holy sons of the Sacred Palace had almost reached the peak. They were the holy sons of a quasi-sage sect, and now that they finally saw the legendary holy sons of the Sacred Palace at such a close distance, how could they not be excited? Xiao Chun and the other 2 were incomparably handsome. In particular, the heroic spirit and confidence exuded from between their brows made people want to worship them. Just by standing there, without doing anything, the momentum of Xiao Chun and the other 2 had completely suppressed the 3 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect. They were all holy sons, but the holy sons of the Sacred Palace and the holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect could not be compared at all. At the same time, The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect also noticed the extraordinariness of Xiao Chun and the other two. At this moment, he looked at Xiao Chun and asked, "Who are you?" Facing Xiao Chun, the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect did not know why, but he instinctively felt a trace of fear spread in his heart. Xiao Chun clearly did not do anything, and he did not even release his aura, but he truly felt a sense of fear spread in his heart. It was as if there was a voice constantly telling him that the young man in golden robes in front of him was very dangerous, and that he must not engage in a battle with him. Otherwise, he would definitely die, and that he had to quickly escape from here. A voice constantly told the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect to quickly escape, and his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Hearing his words, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Are you afraid?" Xiao Chun said indifferently, keenly capturing the flash of fear in the person's eyes. Hearing this, the person shouted in a slightly flustered and angry voice, "Nonsense! How am I afraid? Who are you? Are you also a disciple of the Fallen River Saint sect? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." In a chapter. Chapter 991. He could see the fear in the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect at a glance. However, he naturally would not admit it. He was the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect. How could he be afraid of a human race cultivator who was about the same age as him, or even younger than him? Wouldn't he become a laughing stock? He flatly denied it, but his explanation did not have any effect. On the contrary, the panic he inadvertently displayed made everyone present feel his nervousness. The two sides had not fought yet, but the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was already afraid. The disciples of the heavenly ghost sect were puzzled. What had happened? Why would the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect be like this? Xiao Chun did not dwell on this issue and said indifferently, "I'm not from the Fallen River Saint sect. I'm the first holy son of the sacred palace, Xiao Chun." Xiao Chun did not dwell on this and introduced himself. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was stunned. Sacred palace? Xiao Chun? First holy son? He was confused for a moment. It was obvious that he had never heard of the sacred palace. Xiao Chun finally realized what was going on. The sacred palace had just been established, and there were very few people who knew about it. Even if Xiao Chun told him, he would not know anything about it. Xiao Chun originally wanted to explain, but soon gave up and said indifferently with a self-deprecating smile, "I forgot that you don't know about the sacred palace, but it doesn't matter. It's useless for a dying man to know more." Xiao Chun did not explain anything. Anyway, in his opinion, the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was about to die. Originally, the Fallen River Saint sect strength was enough to deal with the heavenly ghost sect. However, the appearance of the three holy sons of the heavenly ghost sect instantly caused the Fallen River Saint sect to lose their momentum. They also understood that after so many years of oppression, it was not something that could be changed overnight. Therefore, Xiao Chun and the other two had appeared and wore the holy sun robes of the sacred palace. They wanted to personally kill the three holy sons of the heavenly ghost sect. As long as they killed the three holy sons of the heavenly ghost sect, the momentum of the Fallen River Saint sect would be restored. At the same time, it would be easier for the disciples of the Fallen River Saint sect to change and no longer be as cowardly as before. They had appeared to kill the three holy sons of the heavenly ghost sect. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura of power surged into the sky from Xiao Chun's body. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was like a wave. Seeing that the other party did not react, Xiao Chun said, "What's wrong? You don't even have the courage to fight?" Xiao Chun's holy son. Unfortunately, Xiao Chun was still disappointed. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was scared before the battle. Was such a person with such confidence worthy of being a holy son? Xiao Chun no longer had much interest. He just wanted to kill him and be done with it. Even if he was a holy son, so what? He was not worth mentioning at all. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was enraged when he heard Xiao Qian's contemptuous words. The pride in his heart made him furious, and a terrifying aura spread out from his body in the midst of his fury. Although his temperament was not good, his strength was not bad. At least he was stronger than Mu. Unfortunately, such temperament meant that he was destined to not have any great achievements. Chun Ling and Long Qing said to the other two holy sons of the heavenly ghost sect at the same time, "Come, let me see what the holy son of the heavenly ghost sect is capable of." A fierce battle soon broke out between the 6 holy children. Xiao Qian fought the number 1 holy child of the heavenly ghost sect with a black dragon sword in hand. He had already used the stampede of the tiger and slashed out with the 9 thunderous swords. Xiao Qian did not want to waste time, so he used his killing move right from the start. The thunderous 9 swords was a heaven-level upper-grade martial skill. Its power was only slightly weaker than the shadow-bearing sword finger. It could be considered one of the strongest offensive moves that Xiao Qian had mastered. Of course, this was also because Xiao Qian had not mastered the fish intestine sword finger and the 9 sifting sword chi. Otherwise, the power of a saint-level martial skill would definitely surpass the thunderous 9 swords. Unfortunately, saint-level martial skills were not so easy to cultivate. Xiao Qian already had a deep understanding of this. With a slash of his sword, a lightning-like sword radiance fiercely attacked the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect. Seeing this, the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect's expression changed. He did not dare to be careless, and also used all his strength to throw out a punch. With a loud bang, the sword radiance and the iron fist collided fiercely and then canceled each other out. He successfully blocked Xiao Qian's first slash. However, Xiao Qian had not used all his strength at this time. The slash just now did not have the addition of the power of law and sword intent. Not bad, but if that's all, it still won't change anything. Xiao Qian said indifferently. Then he slashed out again. This time, Xiao Qian used sword intent. Sword intent at the perfection stage gushed out and attacked the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect along with the sword radiance. It was the same thunderclap 9 swords, but Xiao Qian's second slash was obviously much more terrifying than the first. This was because Xiao Qian used sword intent. It was extremely fast, and there was no time to dodge. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect could only choose to take it head-on. He used all his strength, and even used the supernatural powers of the ghost clan. However, the final result was that even though the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect successfully blocked Xiao Qian's second slash, he was also seriously injured. He was seriously injured by Xiao Qian after 2 slashes, and this was under the condition that he used the supernatural powers of the ghost clan. Seeing this, Xiao Qian slashed out again. This time, not only did it have the addition of sword intent, but it also had the addition of the laws of strength and speed. "Looks like it's time to end this," Xiao Qian said indifferently as the sword slashed out like a dragon. He already knew that the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect had used all his strength. In that case, he would not be able to block the third slash. As he spoke, Xiao Qian's third slash was like a dragon emerging from the sea. It streaked across the sky like lightning and attacked the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect under the horrified gaze of the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect. He couldn't block it. He couldn't block it. The first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was completely engulfed by fear even before they came into contact. The sword light was getting closer and closer. Finally, under everyone's gaze, the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect was cut into 2 halves from the middle. Before he died, everyone seemed to faintly hear the first holy son of the heavenly ghost sect crying for help. "Elder, save me." Her last cries seemed to be echoing in his ears, but she was already dead. The battle between the holy sons was expected to be a fierce battle. Who would have thought that it would end so quickly? Xiao Qian killed his opponent with just 3 slashes. Many disciples of the fallen River Saint sect looked at Xiao Qian with admiration and thought to themselves, "Is this the first holy son of the sacred palace of the secondary saint sect?" Killing holy sons is like slaughtering pigs and dogs. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 992. He had killed the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect in 3 moves. Everyone from the Falling River Saints sect was filled with admiration, while the Heavenly Ghost sect was scared out of their wits. Anyone could tell that Xiao Chun was young, and his cultivation was the same as the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect. However, Xiao Chun had killed the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect in 3 moves. How is this possible? After all, that was the first holy son of the Heavenly Ghost sect, not some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. How could he be killed by Xiao Chun so easily? In that case, wouldn't Xiao Chun's strength be? Everyone was shocked by Xiao Chun. At the same time, Chun Ling and Long Qing quickly killed the other 2 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect. At this point, all 4 holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect were dead. In less than 100 breaths, all the holy sons of the Heavenly Ghost sect were killed by Xiao Chun and the other 2. With the death of the 3 holy sons, the morale of the Heavenly Ghost sect was low. On the other hand, the Falling River Saints sect was in high spirits. There was no need for Xiao Chun and the other 2 to say anything. Seeing that the Falling River Saints sect was in high spirits, Fei Chun gave the order, and the disciples of the Falling River Saints sect pounced on the Heavenly Ghost sect like hungry wolves. When the battle broke out, Xiao Chun took advantage of the chaos to save Li Qi and the other members of the Li family. There wasn't much to say about this battle. The disparity in strength between the 2 sides was huge. The Heavenly Ghost sect only had 4 saints, while the Fallen River Saints sect had 13. Therefore, it could be said that the Heavenly Ghost sect didn't have any ability to fight back. The people of the Heavenly Ghost sect were all killed. The battle lasted for nearly 4 hours. In the end, the Heavenly Ghost sect was completely wiped out. Although the Falling River Saints sect also lost some people, the casualties were not too great. The Heavenly Ghost sect was too careless this time. They dared to swagger in front of the Fallen River Saints sect with such a small group of people. Perhaps in the eyes of the Heavenly Ghost sect, the Fallen River Saints sect was still the same cowardly sect as before. The members of the Heavenly Ghost sect probably did not expect the Fallen River Sacred sect to take action. After killing the members of the Heavenly Ghost sect, Xiao Chun and company returned to the Fallen River Sacred sect. As for Li Qi and the other members of the Li family, they were temporarily placed in the Fallen River Sacred sect. Tomorrow, there would be disciples of the Fallen River Sacred sect to escort them back to Fire Phoenix City. The arrival of the Sky Ghost sect did not affect the Fallen River Saints sect in the slightest. Many disciples of the Fallen River Saints sect were not afraid of the Sky Ghost sect's revenge. What a joke! The Fallen River Saints sect was now overseen by the Sacred Palace. Just the 2 quasi-sage great sovereigns, Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie, were enough to make the Heavenly Ghost sect tremble in fear. Therefore, the Fallen River Saints sect was not afraid of the Heavenly Ghost sect's revenge at all. The Fallen River Saints sect did not cause any waves in the Fallen River Saints sect. At the residence of the Sacred Palace disciples, Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing had also arrived at the residence of the 2 patriarchs, Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie. In the courtyard, Xiao Sheng looked at the 3 people in front of him. Before the 3 of them could speak, Xiao Sheng spoke first. Why? Do you want to go out and train? Xiao Chun and the other 2 had long wanted to go to the Taishan continent to train. When they heard Xiao Sheng's words, the 3 of them naturally did not hide it and nodded. Seeing this, Xiao Sheng smiled faintly and said, "All right, go ahead, but be careful along the way. If there's anything, you can contact us immediately." He did not stop Xiao Chun and the other 2. After all, training was indispensable if they wanted to grow. Therefore, this time, Xiao Sheng did not send anyone to protect Xiao Chun and the others and let them go to the Taishan continent to train alone. After obtaining Xiao Sheng's approval, Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shi left the Fallen River Saints sect early the next morning and began their training on the Taishan continent. Not only them, But the other 1,000 Sacred Palace disciples also left the Fallen River Saints sect in groups of 3 or 5. Many of the disciples had gone out to train. In this regard, Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie did not send anyone to protect them. Although they knew that the Taishan continent was dangerous, how could flowers in a greenhouse grow up? Therefore, there were some things that the disciples needed to face on their own. Xiao Sheng did not want the disciples of the Sacred Palace to be useless in the future. 1,500 disciples left the Fallen River Saints sect one after another. Xiao Sheng, Meng Jie, and the 5 Sacred Palace Saint Venerables also left the Fallen River Saints sect 3 days later. At the same time, the starship that they had been on was also placed in the Fallen River Saints sect and was taken care of by the Fallen River Saints sect. After placing the starship in the Fallen River Saints sect, there was no need for anyone to stay behind. The Fallen River Saints sect would naturally take care of it. Like the other disciples, although Xiao Sheng and the others were noble quasi-saints, they were also very curious about the unfamiliar Taishan continent. Therefore, after the disciples went out to train one after another, Xiao Sheng and the others naturally did not continue to stay in the Fallen River Saints sect and wanted to go out and take a look. Flying leisurely in the sky, they had already left the Fallen River Saints sect's territory. At this moment, the saints following Xiao Sheng all asked, "Ancestor, where are we going now? Let's go to the Heavenly Ghost sect. Since we have nothing to do, let's destroy the Heavenly Ghost sect first." Xiao Sheng smiled when he heard the Saint Venerable's questions. Anyway, there was no clear target. Moreover, for quasi-saint supreme sovereigns like Xiao Sheng and Meng Jie, there was nowhere on the Taishan continent that they could not go. Without a target, they naturally had to walk around and take a look. As such, Xiao Sheng's first target was the Heavenly Ghost sect. To Xiao Sheng, destroying the Heavenly Ghost sect could raise the prestige of the Sacred Palace. Secondly, the Heavenly Ghost sect was indeed courting death and had hit the muzzle of the gun. No one had any objections to Xiao Sheng's words. Subsequently, the group flew directly towards the Heavenly Ghost sect. Leaving aside Xiao Sheng's group, Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the prefecture city of Yin Peak Prefecture 3 days later. As the center of Yin Peak Prefecture, there was a branch of the Supreme Deity sect in the prefecture city. There were a total of 999 prefectures on the Taishan continent, and each prefecture had its own prefecture city. It could be considered the center of a prefecture. In each of the 999 prefectures, there was a branch of the Supreme Deity sect in each prefecture city. These branches oversaw the prefectures and could be said to be a means for the Supreme Deity sect to control the Taishan continent. After all, as long as the prefectures were firmly in their hands, the Supreme Deity sect could firmly control the entire Taishan continent. Moreover, the branches of the Supreme Deity sect were also ranked. The branch in the prefecture city was only a second-grade branch with at most 2 to 3 half-step saints overseeing it. The branch in the prefecture city was a first-grade branch with at least 10 half-step saints overseeing it. There is also a teleportation formation that could be connected to the Supreme Deity sect's headquarters at any time. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 993. From the Luo River Holy Sect to the Yunfeng Prefecture, Xiao Chun and the others passed by many towns in the Yunfeng Prefecture. As the saying goes, it's better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. Obviously, they had not seen it with their own eyes. After seeing the Yunfeng Prefecture for themselves, Xiao Chun and the others gradually understood the Yunfeng Prefecture and the Taishan continent. Xiao Chun walked on the streets of Yunfeng Prefecture City. As the center of the entire prefecture, it was needless to say that Yunfeng Prefecture City was luxurious. It was comparable to the big cities of the Tiana continent. Of course, Xiao Chun was now used to such prosperity. After all, so many years had passed, and Xiao Chun was no longer the inexperienced young man he used to be. People came and went on the streets. People of various races gathered in the Yunfeng Prefecture. However, Although almost all the races of the Tai-Shan continent gathered in the Yunfeng prefecture, the real masters were still the Shun clan. At the same time, along the way, Xiaoqin also discovered that the Shun clan was indeed the most numerous. They stood almost half of the Tianfeng prefecture's population. The Tai-Shan continent could be said to be the headquarters of the Shun clan in the North Star territory. Therefore, it was understandable that the Shun clan was the most numerous. Along the way, Gu Lingyao and the other girls were clearly the happiest. There were many rare things on the Tai-Shan continent that the three girls had never seen before, especially jewelry that women liked. Of course, there were also rouge and face powder that they couldn't miss. Brother Xiaochun, come quickly. Sister Shui Ro has taken a fancy to this box of rouge. From afar, Gu Lingyao stood in front of shop and waved at Xiaochun. Seeing this, Xiaochun smiled and walked forward with Chunling. The attitude of the four girls towards the rouge, face powder, and all kinds of jewelry that they had never seen before was very clear. It was only one word, buy. As long as it was something they had never seen before, whether it was beautiful or fun, the four girls would buy it without batting an eyelid. Xiaochun naturally wouldn't say anything about this. As the chosen of the sacred palace, Xiaochun definitely had a lot of money on him. Moreover, these rouge, face powder, and accessories didn't belong to him in the first place. To put it bluntly, even if he bought all the rouge and face powder in the entire Yunfeng prefecture, it was nothing to Xiaochun. They bought like crazy all the way until the sky gradually darkened. Only then did the four girls reluctantly follow Xiaochun and Chunling into a restaurant. Xiaochun and Chunling were naturally not interested in shopping. However, they were very interested in the fine wine on the Tai-Shan continent. Along the way, Xiaochun and Chunling were full of praise for the fine wine on the Tai-Shan continent. It couldn't be helped. The fine wine on the Tai-Shan continent was completely different from the wine on the Tianshan continent and the Tiana continent. Xiaochun and Chunling had never tasted it before. They didn't ask for a private room and directly sat down in the hall. Xiaochun shouted to the waiter beside him, "Waiter, bring 5 jars of your best wine first. Also, prepare some dishes to go with the wine." Seeing Xiaochun shouting excitedly, which was completely different from the lifeless look he had when they were shopping, Gu Lingyao pouted and said unhappily, stinky drunkard. When he was shopping with us, he looked half dead. Once it's time to drink, he immediately came back to life. She complained in her heart. Hearing this, Baihua Fairy also smiled and said, "Sister is right. Why don't we not let this bad guy into the room tonight and let him sleep by himself?" Yes. Don't let him into the room. Let him sleep by himself." Hearing this, Gu Lingyao, the little girl, quickly agreed. Hearing the conversation between the two girls, Xiaochun cleverly didn't say anything. As men, harmony in the backyard was the most important. Xiaochun also deeply agreed with this in the past. Xiaochun was also very lucky. Although the three girls of Qinshiru were all outstanding beauties, their relationship had always been very good and there were no conflicts. However, recently, Xiaochun felt a little helpless. The three girls' relationship was good, but the problem was that they were all targeting him. This made Xiaochun very speechless. Xiaochun was not allowed to flirt outside, let alone find other girls. Xiaochun could tolerate these, but now he couldn't even drink wine. This was something that Xiaochun would never agree to. In this world, as a man, there were only a few things that he pursued in his life: cultivation, women, and good wine. If this life didn't have good wine, wouldn't it be very boring? Therefore, regarding the problem of wine, Xiaochun would never give in. Like Xiaochun, Chunling also sat upright and still. He didn't respond to Gu Lingyao and Fairy of 100 Flowers. During this period of time, Chunling also deeply felt and secretly sighed in his heart more than once. Sigh, my 3 sisters-in-law are not easy to deal with. I can't provoke them. Having already seen that Qinshiru and the other 2 girls were not easy to deal with, Chunling also avoided them. He basically didn't argue with the 3 girls. Anyway, you guys talk, I'll listen and I won't refute. The 2 brothers sat upright and still, quietly waiting for the good wine to be served. Very quickly, the waiter served 5 jars of good wine and some dishes. When they saw the good wine, Xiao Chun and Chen Ling looked at each other and did not say anything. They did not hesitate to pick up a jar each. They simply did not give Qin Shiro and the other 2 girls a chance to speak and directly gulped down a mouthful. Few good wine, not bad, not bad. After a big gulp of wine, Xiao Chun exhaled a breath of wine and said happily, "The good wine in Yunfeng City had a different flavor and was completely different from the wine in other cities." With the good wine in his arms, Xiao Chun directly ignored the cold gazes of the 3 girls beside him. Very quickly, he drank to his heart's content with Chun Ling and Long Qing. Looking at Xiao Chun, who completely ignored her, Gu Lingyao pouted and scolded in annoyance. "Drink, drink, drink. You only know how to drink. Drink until you die." "Forget it, Sister Lingyao. Let's try this wine too. Seeing that our husband is drinking so happily, it should taste good." Seeing that Gu Lingyao was starting to sulk again, Qin Shuru smiled and said, "To outsiders, Qin Shuru always had a cold expression, and only to his family would he show such a smile." As he spoke, Qin Shuru formally acknowledged his master and poured 3 cups of wine. The 3 girls didn't drink like Xiao Chun and just took a small sip. The taste was indeed not bad. Then, the 3 girls also drank, but obviously, they didn't drink as much as Xiao Chun. Everyone drank to their heart's content. At the same time, at the table next to them, a few God Clan warriors sat together, drinking and discussing. The young heroes gathering is about to start. I heard that Yunfeng Prefecture only has 6 spots this time. Looks like the competition this time will be even more intense. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 994. Youthful Association. Xiao Chun and the others pricked up their ears when they heard the conversation of the God Race cultivators at the next table. They were obviously very interested in the Youthful Association, so they also listened quietly. They didn't think that Xiao Chun and the others were snooping. Moreover, the Youthful Association wasn't a secret to begin with, so these God Race cultivators didn't take any precautions when they were talking about it. After hearing the previous God Race cultivator's words, another God Race cultivator sitting next to him took a sip of wine and said, "Fierce competition, my ass. You guys still don't know, right? Just yesterday, the Heavenly Ghost Sect was destroyed. It said that all the saints and half-sages of the Heavenly Ghost Sect were killed. Only the disciples with low cultivation escaped. The Heavenly Ghost Sect was destroyed? That's impossible. Who did it? I don't know. But according to the rumors, it seems to be a sect called the Sacred Palace. The destruction of the Heavenly Ghost Sect was naturally done by Xiao Sheng and the others. Not only did they destroy the Heavenly Ghost Sect, but Xiao Sheng also deliberately spread the news about the Sacred Palace, saying that it was the Sacred Palace that destroyed the Heavenly Ghost Sect. It was also because of this matter that many people were discussing the Sacred Palace. Under everyone's curiosity, some information about the Sacred Palace gradually spread. News about the newly emerged quasi-sage sect of the human race, and so on gradually spread in the Yun Peak Mansion. At this time, several God Race cultivators at the table had already spoken. "You don't even know about the Sacred Palace? It said that it's a newly emerged quasi-sage sect founded by the human race." "What? Quasi-sage sect? Since when did the human race have a quasi-sage sect? That's impossible." "How is it impossible? If it wasn't a quasi-sage sect, how could the Heavenly Ghost Sect be destroyed so easily? A quasi-sage sect has appeared. It seems that the human race is also about to rise." It was obvious that the divine race's interest was quickly attracted by the Sacred Palace's matters, so they stopped talking about the Yuying Association. Seeing this, Xiao Chun felt a little helpless. When he heard that Xiao Chun and the others had destroyed the Heavenly Ghost Sect, Xiao Chun was also shocked. However, when he saw that these God Race experts no longer talked about the Yuying Association and seemed to be talking about the Saint Palace, Xiao Chun was speechless. He thought to himself, "I know more about the Saint Palace than you guys. Hurry up and tell me about the Youthful Association." He was very curious about the Yuying Association. However, looking at the God's Race, it seemed like they wouldn't be coming out anytime soon. In the end, Xiao Chun lost his patience and took the initiative to bring a bowl of wine to the table where the gods' race were sitting. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Everyone, I heard you guys talking about the Young Heroes Association. Can you tell me more about it?" "Thank you." These god race experts had already fallen too deep into the pit. Seeing that they were talking about the Saint Palace, they had probably come out. Therefore, Xiao Chun could only take the initiative to ask. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun took the initiative to toast a bowl of wine to the gods' race experts. Then, he sat down on an empty seat and began to ask about the Yueying Association. Xiao Chun was very polite and had an ethereal temperament. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. As for these god race experts, they didn't have any status. They were just cultivators. Therefore, they didn't offend Xiao Chun. In addition, Xiao Chun gave each of them a mid-grade spirit stone as a reward for asking about the Yueying Association. This made them extremely happy. Therefore, in the face of Xiao Chun's questions, it could be said that they didn't hide anything from him. After a series of inquiries, Xiao Chun finally knew the origin of the Yueying Association. The Yueying Association was established by the Supreme Deity sect in the Cloud region. Only the younger generation could participate in it. It was the pinnacle event of the younger generation in the Cloud region. Regardless of race or birth, as long as one was a young talent and passed the test of each prefecture, one would be able to receive an invitation to the Yueying Association in the Cloud region. With the invitation, one could participate in the Yueying Association. It was held once every 10 years. Every time the Yueying Association was held, it would set off a craze in the Cloud region. All the cultivators in the Cloud region, regardless of race, unanimously agreed that only those who participated in the Yueying Association could be considered as the best in the Cloud region. Of course, it wasn't easy to participate in the Yueying Association. Firstly, every time the Yueying Association started, there would be a strict quota. Every prefecture only had 5 quotas. Obviously, the competition for these 5 quotas was extremely intense. It could be said that if one wasn't a saint, one wouldn't even have the qualifications to compete for the quota. Those who were able to participate in the Yueying Association were definitely the best among the saints. Therefore, the Yueying Association had a very high status in the Cloud region. As for how they would be selected, it was very simple. Every single one of the 80 prefectures of Cloud Prefecture had an azurite pagoda, and all young geniuses below the age of 200 and had attained the Tao Emperor realm could enter the pagoda. In the end, the top 5 people would be able to receive an invitation to the Yueying Association. The selection process was very simple. Moreover, there was another reason why the Yueying Association was so famous. It was because the Yueying Association was held in the Jade Flower Forest in the Cloud region. The Jade Flower Forest was only a name. However, it was because of the Jade Flower Forest that the Yueying Association rose to a higher level and became the dream of all the young talents in the Cloud region. Since he had never heard of the Jade Flower Forest, Xiao Chun naturally didn't know why the Jade Flower Forest was so attractive. Fortunately, these people from the god race had some understanding of the Jade Flower Forest and immediately explained it to Xiao Chun. According to them, the Jade Flower Forest was once created by a quasi-saint from the god race. Moreover, this quasi-saint was once the first-generation ancestor of the Supreme God sect. However, it was a very long time ago. The quasi-saint's life could be said to be incomparably legendary. When he was young, he was regarded as a piece of trash. The power of his bloodline was thin, and it was said that he wouldn't be able to achieve anything great in his lifetime. However, such a piece of trash eventually grew up to become a quasi-saint. Of course, this was only secondary. What made him the most memorable was the story of him and his wife. No one had expected that this god race member, who had become a quasi-sage great venerate, would actually fall in love with a human girl without any cultivation base. One was a high and mighty quasi-saint, while the other was an ordinary human girl. These two people who shouldn't have had any interactions actually fell in love with each other. However, how long could an ordinary person's lifespan be? At most, it would be 100 years. Compared to a quasi-saint, that was just a fleeting moment. Knowing that his lover's lifespan was very short, the quasi-saint didn't think of teaching her cultivation. However, this girl's meridians were naturally blocked, and she simply couldn't cultivate. As he watched his lover grow old day by day, the quasi-saint found a paradise in the cloud region and personally planted jade flowers. Since then, he had accompanied his lover and never left the jade flower forest, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 995. A quasi-sage of the god race fell in love with a human girl who had no cultivation and was born with blocked meridians and nose, making it impossible for her to cultivate. For the sake of this human girl, this quasi-sage of the god race was willing to seclude himself from the world. Even though his wife had already turned into a pile of dust, he still stayed by her side every day, telling her the stories she liked and chatting with her. To a quasi-sage, the lifespan of an ordinary person was like a shooting star flashing across the sky. And this quasi-sage of the god race had passed away early because of this reason. It was said that this quasi-sage was still very young back then, at least among the quasi-sages. But after his wife passed away, in a short 100 years, this quasi-sage missed his wife too much and thus passed away in the jade flower forest. When this quasi-sage died back then, the entire supreme divine sect was shaken. No one would have thought that such a young quasi-sage of the god race would pass away so early for an ordinary woman. I only love one person in my life. So what if I'm a quasi-sage? I can't even protect my Forget it. I'll just be an ordinary person in my next life. I'll farm with my beloved wife and live an ordinary life. It was said that this was the last sentence of the quasi-sage before he passed away. It was precisely because of the story of this quasi-sage and his beloved wife that the Jade Flower Forest became a holy land in the hearts of all young girls in the Cloud Prefecture. Just think about it. Which woman wouldn't yearn for such a love? A love that could move one's heart to songs and tears made the originally ordinary Jade Flower Forest extraordinary. Every young talent who went to the Jade Flower Forest said that when you walked through the boundless sea of flowers in the Jade Flower Forest, it was as if you could still see the scene of that quasi-sage and his wife chatting warmly together. It was as if you could still hear that quasi-sage playing the favorite song of his beloved wife. However, it was a pity that not everyone could obtain such a place with such a story. Only those young geniuses who were qualified to participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Young Heroes Gathering were fortunate enough to see the true appearance of the Jade Flower Forest and feel the affection that the quasi-saint great sovereign had for his beloved wife. It could be said that the Jade Flower Forest elevated the youth gathering. Of course, being able to participate in the youth gathering obviously wasn't the only benefit. There were other benefits, and they were all substantial. Being able to participate in the Jade Flower Forest actually meant that one had the qualifications to enter the supreme divine sect. Of course, Xiaochen wasn't interested in this. Moreover, the supreme divine sect only accepted members of the god race. After listening to the god race's words, Xiaochen understood the youth gathering and the Jade Flower Forest of the Cloud Prefecture. Simply put, the youth gathering of the Cloud Prefecture was actually a gathering of the young talents of the Cloud Prefecture. Xiaochen got up and left. When he returned to his seat, he saw that Qin Shu, Long Qing, and the other three girls' eyes were red. Obviously, they were hurt by the story of the Jade Flower Forest. Only love one person in one's life? Brother Xiaochen, let's also participate in the youth gathering of the Cloud Prefecture. Okay? I want to see the Jade Flower Forest. With red eyes, Gu Lingyao threw herself into Xiaochen's arms and said with a sobbing tone. The four girls were moved by the quasi-sage's infatuation, so they wanted to see the Jade Flower Forest personally. No wonder the god race's cultivators said that the Jade Flower Forest was the holy land in the hearts of all the girls in the Cloud Prefecture. It seemed like it wasn't an exaggeration at all. In the face of Gu Lingyao's request and the gaze of Qin Shu and the other two girls, Xiaochen finally nodded and said, "Okay, let's go see the Jade Flower Forest." Xiao Chen wasn't as emotional as the four girls, but to be honest, Xiao Chen admired the quasi-sage of the god race very much. It was really rare for a person to be so infatuated. However, he believed that his wife must be very happy. Although it was only a short 100 years, she had found a rare, good husband in the world. Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. After all, he did not have any specific goals for this training. Since the Yuying Association of the Yinzhou State would allow him to see the top talents of the younger generation of the Yinzhou State, why not participate in it? As for the problem of qualifications, Xiao Chen wasn't worried. There were 6 places in the entire Yunfeng Prefecture, and Xiao Chen happened to have 6 people. Xiao Chen, Long Qing, and Chunling naturally didn't have to worry. With their strength, no one in the younger generation in the entire Yunfeng Prefecture could compete with them. Even though Qin Shiru and the other 2 girls weren't as strong as Xiao Chun and the other 2 girls, they were definitely sanuses in the sage sex. Therefore, Xiao Chen decided on the 6 places in the Yunfeng Prefecture without hesitation. After inadvertently hearing about the Yunfeng Prefecture Youth Gathering and the Jade Flower Forest, the group decided to participate. After that, they found an inn to rest. There were still 3 days before the selection of a Yunfeng Prefecture Youth Gathering, so they decided to wait in Yunfeng Prefecture City. At night, in the guest battle, Qin Shiru and the other 2 girls were still moved by the story of the Jade Flower Forest. Seeing that the 3 girls couldn't forget for a long time, Xiao Chen was helpless. Especially when faced with Gu Lingyao's various questions, Xiao Chen was speechless. At this moment, Gu Lingyao was lying in Xiao Chen's arms and asked with a sorrowful face, "Brother Xiao Chen, if we die one day, will you build a jade flower forest for us like that quasi-sage?" Hearing Gu Lingyao's question, Xiao Chen was completely speechless. What the hell was this? However, when he felt the gazes of Flower Fairy and Qin Shu, Xiao Chen knew that the 3 girls wanted to know the answer very much. He really didn't understand. Putting aside Gu Lingyao, Qin Shuru and Flower Fairy were extremely wise women in the past. Why did they follow this little girl's lead and act foolishly at this time? However, thinking about it, a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. You would never be able to guess it. Under the gazes of the 3 girls, Xiao Chen knew that he had to answer. Coincidentally, Xiao Chen also had some thoughts about this matter, so he said slowly, "In this world, everyone has their own story. The Jade Flower Forest is someone else's story. I'm not that quasi-sage, and you aren't that woman of the human race who was born unable to cultivate. Although I didn't manage to only love one person in my life like that quasi-sage, my love for you is not inferior to anyone else's. In the future, I will definitely build a jade flower forest for you. However, I won't be the only one guarding you. We will live together and never leave each other." Xiao Chen said slowly. It was stupid to use other people's stories to measure oneself. In Xiao Chen's opinion, although that quasi-sage story was touching, it wasn't his story. Xiao Chen and his 3 wives had their own love stories. There was no need to be envious or emotional about other people's stories. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 996. Xiao Chen would not become that quasi-sage great venerable. Although he was infatuated, he was also very pitiful. If he asked himself honestly, if Qin Shu and the other 2 ladies left him one day, he would definitely die of depression like that quasi-sage great venerable. However, Xiao Chen would not let such a thing happen. No matter what, Xiao Chen would not let the 3 ladies leave him. To protect the people around him, if quasi-sage was not enough, he would become a great sage. If a great sage was not enough, he would become even stronger. Xiao Chen would not be like that quasi-sage great venerable who could only accompany his beloved wife's grave every day. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Shiru and the other 2 ladies were so touched that they rushed into Xiao Chen's arms. After a silent night, everyone waited in Yunfeng Prefecture for the next few days. Every day, after Xiao Chen finished his cultivation, he would accompany Qin Shu, Lin Qing, and the other two ladies to go shopping. Otherwise, he would go to a restaurant with Chun Ling to drink a jar of good wine. His days were quite carefree. Under such peace, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, the Yunfeng Prefecture branch of the Supreme Deity sect was already busy. These people were all here to watch the selection of the Yunzhou Yueying Association. Of course, there were also some who had signed up. However, due to the harsh conditions, not many people signed up. In the entire Yunfeng Prefecture, there were less than 1,000 people who signed up, being under 200 years old and above the Tao King realm. Just these two conditions alone were enough to stop most of the young warriors in Yunfeng Prefecture from entering. Moreover, even if one met these two conditions, it was actually useless. Everyone knew that these two conditions were only a threshold. If one really wanted to compete for a spot in the Young Heroes Association, one had to at least reach the level of a holy son before it was possible. If one was not a saint, even if one signed up, it was just a formality. Since the Yunzhou Yueying Association had been held until now, there had never been a person who was not a saint who was qualified to enter the Yueying Association. Because they knew this very well, not many people signed up. There were less than 1,000 people in the entire Yunfeng mansion. The day before, Xiao Chun and the others had already registered. Early in the morning, Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the Supreme Deity Sect branch in the Yun Peak Prefecture city. From afar, they saw the scene of a sea of people. Among the crowd, Xiao Chun also saw some Sacred Palace and Fallen River Sacred Sect disciples. Everyone bowed respectfully when they saw Xiao Chun and the others. The disciples of the Sacred Palace had also come to Yunfeng Prefecture City to train. When they heard about the Youths Association in Yunzhou, they also came to watch. At the same time, some disciples of the Sacred Palace who met the requirements had signed up. Of course, there were not many of them. After greeting everyone, Xiao Chun and the others walked into the Supreme Deity Sect branch. A specialized person led Xiao Chun and the others all the way to the backyard. In the deepest part of the backyard, Xiao Chun and the others finally saw the outstanding youth pagoda. There was one outstanding youth pagoda in each of the 80 prefectures in the Yunfeng Prefecture. It was built for the purpose of the Outstanding Youth Association. The pagoda did not look special. It was made of wood and was dark red in color. There were a total of 9 floors. When Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the courtyard where the Outstanding Youth Pagoda was located, hundreds of young talents who had signed up were already there. The disciples of the Sacred Palace and the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect all came forward and bowed respectfully when they saw Xiao Chun and the others. In particular, the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect could not hide the fiery gaze in their eyes. It attracted the attention of the crowd. The Heavenly Ghost sect had been destroyed. The entire sect, including the saints, half-saints, chosen, and prospective chosen, had all been killed. Originally, there were only 2 sacred sects in the Yunfeng Prefecture. Now that the Heavenly Ghost sect had been destroyed, the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect vaguely felt that they were the leaders of the younger generation in the Yunfeng Prefecture. However, the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect were currently bowing to Xiao Chun and the others with fiery admiration. This made the surrounding crowd curious. They all wondered who exactly Xiao Chun and the others were to be able to make the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect so respectful and worshipful. Hey, do you know who these humans are? I don't know. They don't look very old. However, if the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect are so respectful, they're clearly not ordinary people. Look, those 3 human women are so beautiful. The crowd discussed softly. At the same time, many people also noticed the beauty of Qin Shiru and the other 2 women. However, because the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect were present, the crowd did not dare to do anything out of line. After all, if the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect were to take the initiative to bow and be so respectful, then the identities of Xiao Chun and the others were definitely not simple. With the appearance of Xiao Chun and the others, the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect knew that they were probably not fated to participate in the Yueying gathering this time. With Xiao Chun and the others here, the others could only stand aside. They had personally witnessed the strength of Shao Chun and the others. They were existences that could kill the first chosen of the Heavenly Ghost sect in 3 strikes. Who among the younger generation in the Yunfeng Prefecture could do that? Under the escort of the 4 chosen of the Fallen River Sacred Sect and a few personal disciples of the Sacred Palace, Shao Chun and the others slowly walked to the front of the Yueying Tower. Looking at the ancient tower that was not too tall, Shao Chun secretly observed it. He did not know what was so special about the Yueying Tower, but since it was built by the Supreme Divine Sect, it should not be simple. While Shao Chun was secretly observing the Yueying Tower, the person in charge of the Yunfeng Prefecture's branch finally appeared. A middle-aged divine clan member with the cultivation of a half-step saint appeared on the scene. Looking at the many young talents present, the middle-aged divine clan member had a faint smile on his face. My name is Bai Qi. This time, I will be presiding over the selection of the Yueying Gathering in the Yunfeng Prefecture. This time, there are a total of 6 spots in the Tianfeng Prefecture. I believe all of you are clear about the rules of the selection, so I won't say much about it. However, before we begin, I want to announce something. The Supreme Divine Sect will also be participating in the selection of the Yunfeng Prefecture. A disciple of the Supreme Divine Sect would also be participating in the selection of the Yueying Gathering. Moreover, it was a prospective chosen. Everyone's expression changed when they heard Bai Qi's words. A prospective chosen of the Supreme Divine Sect. If he was placed in a saint's sect, he would probably be in existence similar to a chosen. Moreover, compared to a chosen of a saint's sect, a prospective chosen of a quasi-sage sect obviously had a higher status. There had never been a precedent of a prospective chosen of the Supreme Divine Sect participating in the selection of the Yueying Gathering. Therefore, everyone was a little puzzled when they heard Bai Qi's words. As soon as Bai Qi finished speaking, a young divine clan member wearing the Supreme Divine Sect's prospective chosen appeared beside him. However, the young divine clan member had an unconcealable arrogance on his face, as if he looked down on everyone present. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 997. The haughty prospective saint of the Supreme Divine Sect was called Chia, and he was at the Perfection Tao King realm. His eyes were filled with disdain, as if he looked down on the young talents of the Yun Peak Mansion. This was normal. Chia was the prospective saint of the Supreme Divine Sect. In his eyes, the young talents of the Yun Peak Mansion were just a bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well who had never seen the world. If it wasn't for the fact that the Young Heroes Gathering was different from the past, Chia wouldn't even be interested in participating. Shao Chun and the others didn't know that prospective saints like Chi, you weren't the only ones participating in the Young Heroes Gathering. Other than the Yun Peak Mansion, the other manors in the Yun Peak Mansion also had prospective saints and prospective saintesses of the Supreme Divine Sect participating. There was a reason why so many prospective saints and prospective saintesses of the Supreme Divine Sect were participating in the Young Heroes Gathering. This time, the holy princes of the Supreme Divine Sect had come back to participate in the Young Heroes Gathering of the Cloud Prefecture. Moreover, there was more than one of them. Moreover, the Supreme Divine Sect's holy princes had come to the Young Heroes Gathering of the Cloud Prefecture to select some young geniuses to explore a newly discovered secret territory. The newly discovered secret realm was left behind by a saint at the Perfection Saint realm. Everything inside was still intact. In other words, if one was lucky, one could obtain the inheritance or treasures left behind by the saint at the Perfection Saint realm. Moreover, there were some restrictions in the secret realm. Only those below 200 years old could enter. If one's age exceeded this range, they would be blocked by the restrictions. Of course, if a quasi-saint supreme venerate were to make a move, they could break the restrictions by force. However, the quasi-saint supreme clan wouldn't be so bored. Since it was a newly discovered secret realm left behind by a saint, the quasi-saint supreme venerates would usually treat it as a training ground for their disciples and wouldn't destroy it easily. Moreover, The secret realm left behind by a saint wasn't attractive to the quasi-saint supreme venerates, so they obviously wouldn't pay attention to it. It wasn't a big deal to the quasi-saint supreme venerates, but it was different for the younger generation like Xiao Chun. It was very attractive. Moreover, the Supreme Divine Sect prospective saints didn't choose from the Supreme Divine Sect this time. Instead, they chose various outstanding talents from the Young Heroes Gathering to enter the secret realm. This was even more strange. However, the prospective saints usually did things as they pleased. They didn't choose disciples from a Supreme Divine Sect, but from the Young Heroes Gathering of the Young Heroes Gathering. Even saints didn't have the right to object. They didn't choose disciples from the Supreme Divine Sect. Because of this, the prospective holy sons and prospective holy maidens of the Supreme Deity Sect all came to Yunzhou to participate in the Youths Association selection. In any case, the Yunzhou Yuing Association did not have any restrictions on one's identity. As long as one met the requirements, one could sign up. The final result would be decided by one's strength. As long as they were qualified to participate in the Yunzhou Yuing Gathering, the Holy Son of the Supreme Sect would definitely choose them. After all, in the eyes of the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters of the Supreme Sect, they were definitely stronger than the Holy Son of a sacred sect. They didn't know that there was such an inside story behind the Yunzhou Yuing Association. With Qi Ye's appearance, the selection officially began. Everyone entered the Yuing Tower one after another and began to challenge the tower. They began to challenge the tower according to the order of registration. Xiao Chun was at the back of the queue. At this time, just like everyone else, Xiao Chun was waiting outside the tower with nothing to do. While they were waiting, Qi Ye took the initiative to approach Qin Shuru and the other two women. Although Qi Ye was a celestial, he was still amazed by the beauty of Qin Shuru and the other two ladies. Hence, he took the initiative to come over and chat with them. Are the three of you also here to participate in the selection of the Yunzhou Yuing Association? He asked with a smile that he thought was very handsome. Hearing Qi Ye's words, Qin Shuru and the other two women naturally chose to ignore him. They had seen many flies like him over the years, so they were already used to it. However, in the face of the three women's cold disregard, as the Holy Son of the Supreme Sect, Qi Ye's face was a little embarrassed. He had always thought of himself as a superior person. Now that he was ignored by the three women, his self-esteem seemed to have been severely damaged. His face darkened and his tone became colder. I'm the Holy Son of the Supreme Sect. Don't forget that this is the Supreme Sect's territory. After failing to strike up a conversation, he directly changed to a threat. Hearing this, Qin Shuru and the other two women glanced at him in disdain. At the same time, Xiao Chun turned his head and said indifferently to Qi Ye, I say, Holy Son of the Supreme Sect, I'm sorry, but they're already taken, so you should go back to where you came from. Xiao Chun had no interest in Qi Ye at all. He was just a Holy Son of the Supreme Sect. If he were a Holy Son of the Supreme Sect, then perhaps Xiao Chun would take a few more glances at him. Unfortunately, he was just a Holy Son and had no interest in him at all. He didn't know how many Holy Sons there were in the Supreme Sect, but compared to the Sacred Palace, which had 10 sacred halls, there were 10 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters in each sacred hall. In total, there were 100 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters. Thinking about it, as a quasi-sage sect, even if the Supreme Sect didn't have 100 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, they definitely had at least 80. As one of the 80 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, Qi Ye was indeed not worthy of Xiao Chen's attention. He couldn't be bothered to lower himself to Qi Ye's level, but after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qi Ye was immediately enraged. Perhaps it was because he had lost face in front of Qin Shuru and the other two women, but he was already suppressing his anger. Now that Xiao Chun had blindly jumped out, Qi Ye naturally used him as a punching bag. In any case, in Qi Ye's opinion, there was no one he couldn't afford to offend in this tiny Yun Peak residence. Therefore, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid and cursed angrily. Scram to the side, human brat. You have no right to speak here. Qi Ye scolded angrily. Very quickly, Chiya's scolding attracted the attention of the surrounding crowd. Everyone's gazes were cast in this direction, and there were even people who were discussing in low voices. Look, those people have offended Chiya. Because the four holy sons of the fallen River Saint sect had treated them with respect, Xiao Chun and the others were the targets of everyone's secret attention. Seeing that Xiao Chun and Chiya seemed to have some sort of conflict, everyone was even more curious. Who exactly were these unfamiliar humans? Not only were they able to make the four holy sons of the fallen River Saint sect treat them with respect, they even dared to publicly offend Chiya. They even dared to offend the holy sons of the supreme sect. It was really surprising. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 998. Chiya scolded angrily. Everyone's eyes also focused on Xiao Chun. In the eyes of the crowd, although they did not know why the four holy sons of the River Fall Holy Sect were so respectful to Xiao Chun, now that Xiao Chun and Chiya had a conflict, it was obvious that Xiao Chun and the others were in trouble. They didn't think that Xiao Chun had the ability to fight against Chiya. After all, the other party was a chosen of the supreme divine sect. Only the four chosens of the falling River Saint sect and the disciples of the sacred palace weren't surprised at all. Even their eyes were filled with murderous intent when they looked at Chiya. A prospective chosen of the supreme divine sect. Was he very strong? That would depend on who he was compared to. After all, Xiao Chun was the first chosen of the sacred palace. They were both quasi-saint sects, but Xiao Chun was the first chosen, while Chiya was merely a prospective chosen. He simply didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They weren't worried that Chiya would be in any danger to Xiao Chun. What a joke. If Chiya was a chosen of the supreme divine sect, he might be able to compete with Xiao Chun. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Under everyone's gazes, Xiao Chun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. In fact, if this guy didn't have designs on Qin Shru and the other two girls, Xiao Chun wouldn't even be bothered with him. He was already used to Qin Shru and the other two girls' ability to attract bees and butterflies, so Xiao Chun naturally dealt with these annoying flies with great ease. Without saying anything else, Xiao Chun swung his palm. It seemed like a casual slap, but Chiya didn't even have time to react. Everyone heard a loud slap and saw Chiya fly out. The prospective holy son of the supreme divine sect had been sent flying with a single slap. Facing such a result, no one could remain calm. They all looked at Xiao Chun as if they had seen a ghost, and then looked at Chiya, who had been sent flying and smashed into the courtyard wall. Chiya, who had been arrogant just a second ago, was now sent flying with a slap. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She stood up shakily, as if she had transformed into a ferocious beast. Her eyes were fixed on Xiao Chun as she gritted her teeth and said word by word, "You're courting death." As he spoke, he charged toward Xiao Chun. However, Xiao Chun quickly sent him flying with another slap. He didn't even have the chance to get close to Xiao Chun. In front of Xiao Chun, Chiya was like a 3-year-old child. She didn't even have the strength to fight back. She felt that her self-esteem had been greatly insulted, but there was nothing she could do. She was simply no match for Xiao Chun. When Chiya was sent flying again, the half-step holy son of the god race, who was also in a state of shock, finally came to his senses. His face darkened, and the majesty of the half-step holy son pressed down on Xiao Chun. He said coldly, "Who are you? How dare you attack the prospective holy son of the supreme divine sect? Are you courting death?" As a half-step holy son of the supreme divine sect's branch in Yinfeng City, he naturally couldn't stand by and watch Chiya get beaten up. However, in the face of such pressure, Xiao Chun and the others didn't change their expressions at all. What a joke. It was impossible for a mere half-step holy son to make Xiao Chun and the others change their expressions. Over the years, Xiao Chun and the others had come into contact with either quasi-sages or saints. To be honest, a mere half-step holy son wasn't enough to make them change their expressions. Moreover, with the strength of Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing, Even if they couldn't defeat a half-step Holy Sun, it was absolutely impossible for a half-step Holy Sun to do anything to Shao Chun and the others. There was no problem for them to escape unscathed. In terms of status and strength, they didn't fear a half-step Holy Sun. Therefore, in the face of such pressure, Shao Chun and the others naturally didn't change their expressions. Shao Chun said indifferently to the gloomy Bai Qi, "Everyone here has seen what happened. I don't think I need to say who's right and who's wrong. Or is your supreme divine sect planning to use your power to oppress others? The whole thing was Qi Yu courting death. If he hadn't coveted Qin Shiru and the other two women, why would Shao Chun have attacked him?" At this time, Qi had already fainted after being slapped twice by Shao Chun. Therefore, he didn't know what had happened next. Seeing that Shao Chun was neither servile nor overbearing, without the slightest bit of nervousness on his face, and then thinking about how Qi Yu could not resist at all in his hands just now, he secretly guessed the identity of Shao Chun and the others. To have the strength to crush the candidate of the Supreme Divine Sect, and at such a young age, it was impossible to believe that Shao Chun did not have some background. In addition, everyone present had seen what had happened. At this time, if Bai Qi personally attacked Shao Chun and bullied him, it would definitely cause gossip, and it wouldn't be good for the Supreme Divine Sect's reputation. Of course, all of this was just Bai Qi's own thoughts. It could be said that he was overthinking. He felt that if he attacked, it would damage the reputation of the Supreme Divine Sect. However, he didn't know that even if he attacked, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Shao Chun and the others. They were merely half-saints. They looked at Bai Qi fearlessly. After a moment of silence, Bai Qi finally said coldly, "You have injured the prospective Holy Son of the Supreme Divine Sect. You are disqualified from the selection of the Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou." He still didn't choose to attack. Shao Chun gave Bai Qi an unfathomable feeling. Moreover, there were so many people present. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Bai Qi chose to keep the peace. However, even if he didn't attack Shao Chun and the others, Shao Chun still injured Qi Yu. Therefore, Bai Qi disqualified Shao Chun and the others from the selection of the Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou. It could be said that he was taking the reputation of the Supreme Divine Sect into consideration. With one sentence, Bai Qi disqualified Shao Chun and the others from the selection. However, Shao Chun's expression didn't change at all. Shao Chun glanced at Bai Qi indifferently and smiled. Actually, if Qi Yu wasn't the prospective Holy Son of the Supreme Divine Sect, he would be a dead man by now. With that, Shao Chun didn't wait for Qi Yu's reply. He turned to the 4 Holy Sons of the Fallen River Saint Sect and said, "You guys stay and participate in the selection. If you succeed, we will meet again at the Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou." With that, Shao Chun led Qin Shiru and the others away in large strides. When the surrounding people heard what Shao Chun said to the 4 Holy Sons of the Fallen River Saint Sect before he left, they were stunned at first. However, someone soon said with disdain, "What a braggart. He was disqualified from the selection, and he still wants to go to the Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou. He must be crazy." That's right. Does he really think that he can do whatever he wants just because he knows the 4 Holy Sons of the Fallen River Saint Sect? He still dares to talk nonsense. When Shao Chun said that they would meet again at the Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou, everyone present snorted disdainfully, including Bai Qi. The Young Heroes Association in Yinzhou was established by the Supreme Divine Sect in Yinzhou. If one didn't participate in the selection, they definitely wouldn't have the opportunity to participate. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 999. The Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association was extremely strict, and it was impossible to force one's way in. After all, the Cloud Prefecture's branch couldn't be compared to the Yun Peak Prefecture's branch. The Yun Peak Prefecture's branch was a second-grade branch of the Supreme Deity Sect, and there were at most 3 half-saints. The Cloud Prefecture's branch was a first-grade branch of the Supreme Deity Sect, and there were at least 10 half-saints in the Cloud Prefecture's branch at all times. As long as there were Tao emperors and Tao kings, there would naturally be more half-saints. Moreover, the first-grade branch had a transportation formation that could be connected to the Supreme Deity Sect's main branch at any time. If there was an emergency, the Supreme Deity Sect saint experts will be able to arrive in 10 minutes at most. Therefore, even Qin Ji secretly despised Xiao Chen's words before he left. What an inexperienced brat. He really doesn't know what to say. Everyone felt that Xiao Chen was boasting. After all, it was impossible to participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association without going through the selection, unless one was a saint of a great sect. Otherwise, it was just a fool's dream. Qin Shiru and the other two girls angrily said as they left the Yun Peak Prefecture of the Supreme Deity Sect and walked on the streets of Yun Peak Prefecture. That prospective saint of the Supreme Deity Sect is really despicable. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have been disqualified. Yes, I still want to go to the Jade Flower Forest to take a look. Without the qualification to participate in the selection, they obviously couldn't go to the Jade Flower Forest. Therefore, the three girls were angry and somewhat unwilling. Hearing this, Xiao Chan smiled faintly, who said that we can't participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association without the qualification. The three girls who were still angry were first stunned when they heard Xiao Chen's words. However, Gu Lingyao quickly hugged Xiao Chen's arm and asked coquettishly, "Brother Xiao Chen, do you have a way? Quickly tell us. I really want to go to the Jade Flower Forest." She asked coquettishly. Seeing this, Xiao Chen gently rubbed the little girl's head and said with a smile, "I say, don't forget our identities. We originally didn't want to reveal our identities to participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association, but since you want to go so badly, there's no other way." The three girls quickly reacted when they heard Xiao Chen's words. Yes, how could they forget this matter? Would the Supreme Deity Sect, Xiao, and his two siblings' identities be rejected to participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association? Absolutely not. Moreover, they would definitely treat them as distinguished guests. The first, second, and third holy princes of the Holy Palace had arrived at the Yunzhou Qing-Ing gathering. Moreover, the Supreme Divine Sect had already understood the strength of the Holy Palace. Therefore, would the Supreme Divine Sect reject Xiao Chun and the others from entering the Yunzhou Qing-Ing gathering? They obviously wouldn't. Just as the other young talents who participated in the selection thought. Unless you were chosen of the Second Saint Sect, it was simply a fool's dream to participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association without passing the selection. After all, the prospective chosen of the Supreme Deity Sect had obediently participated in the selection. Fortunately, Xiao Chen didn't know what these people were thinking. Otherwise, Xiao Chen would have snorted disdainfully. Then I'm sorry, but I really am a chosen of the Second Saint Sect, and the first chosen. Even if they didn't participate in the selection, they could still participate in the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association. At most, their identities would be exposed. This wasn't a big deal. After all, Qin Shiru and the other two girls wanted to take a look at the Jade Flower Forest. Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't reject their small request. His words dispelled the depression in the hearts of the three girls. Subsequently, the three girls' moods improved greatly. The group found a restaurant, and after a sumptuous meal, they left Yunfeng Prefecture City on their mounts. There was a transportation array in Yunfeng Prefecture City that led to the Cloud Prefecture City. However, there were still 2 months before the Cloud Prefecture's Qing-Ing Association, so Xiao Chun and the rest didn't take the transportation array. Instead, they planned to travel all the way to the Cloud Prefecture City. They had already calculated the distance from Yunfeng Prefecture City to Yunzhou City. If they traveled at full speed, they would arrive in half a month's time. There were still 2 months left before the Yunzhou Youth Gathering began. Hence, there was definitely enough time. Moreover, they were going to train in Taishan Continent this time. Naturally, they wanted to explore more. Wouldn't it be less fun if they took the transportation array? Xiao Qin's group set off from the Yun Peak Prefecture City and headed towards the Yun State capital. At the same time, the Yun Peak Prefecture City branch, after 3 days of selection, the final 6 spots for the Yunpeak Prefecture were naturally decided. Among them, Chia undoubtedly occupied 1 spot, followed by the 4 saints of the Falling River Saint sect, who occupied 3 spots. The remaining 2 spots were occupied by 2 disciples from 2 large clans within the Yunpeak Mansion. As for the disciples of the Sacred Palace, it was normal that they did not get a spot. After all, other than Xiao Chun and the other 2 chosen, the rest of the Sacred Palace disciples who came to the Taishan continent were direct disciples and core disciples. Although these people were not bad, there was still a gap between them and the Holy Sons. Fortunately, Gudu Wuya and the other prospective Holy Sons and Holy Daughters of the Holy Palaces did not come. Otherwise, they would definitely be able to get a spot in the Yunzhou Yueying Association. The selection of the Yunpeak Prefecture had ended. At this time, Chia, whose injuries were no longer serious, was sitting in the Yunpeak Prefecture branch with a furious expression on her face. Being knocked out by Xiao Chen's 2 slaps was an absolute humiliation to Chia. Therefore, after the selection of the Yunzhou Yueying Association ended, Chia began to inquire about the whereabouts of Xiao Chun and the others. Needless to say, the Taishan sect's intelligence was indeed impressive. Chia quickly found out that Xiao Chun and the others had already left the Yunpeak Prefecture city and knew the approximate route that they had taken. Chia's eyes flashed with intense killing intent as she muttered coldly, "Damned human, I will tear you to pieces to repay the debt in my heart. Just you wait. Revenge. She must take revenge. She must kill Xiao Chun and get Qin Shiru and the other 2 girls in her bed." Chia viciously thought to herself. She had already sent a message to the surrounding Taishan sect disciples. Moreover, Chia had also contacted a few large families within the Yunpeak Prefecture, planning to hunt down Xiao Chun and the others together. After the previous exchange with Xiao Chun, Chia naturally knew that she was no match for Xiao Chun. But so what? If you're not strong enough, I'll crush you with force. Aren't you good at fighting? This time, I'll surround you with hundreds of experts. I don't believe that I can't kill you. I've already made all the preparations, Chia viciously thought. Then, Chia left the Yunpeak Prefecture city on the same day. Not far from the Yunpeak Prefecture city, Chia met up with the Taishan sect disciples who had rushed over, as well as the experts sent by the large families within the Yunpeak Prefecture city. They chased after Xiao Chun and the others, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 1000. Chia swore that he would not let Xiao Chun go. He led hundreds of people and chased after Xiao Chun and the rest. Of course, there were only a dozen disciples of the Supreme Deity sect among the hundreds of people. After all, the Yunpeak Prefecture was too far from the Supreme Deity sect's headquarters. It was impossible to gather too many disciples in a short period of time. Moreover, Chia was only a prospective Holy Son. If he wanted to gather disciples from the Supreme Deity sect's headquarters, he needed the approval of the Holy Son. Therefore, he only gathered the dozen or so disciples of the Supreme Deity sect around the Yunpeak Prefecture. As for the rest, they were the experts sent by the major clans of the Yunpeak Prefecture. After receiving Chia's order, these clans did not dare to refuse. Therefore, they could only send experts to help Chia and follow his orders. A group of hundreds of people chased after Xiao Chun and the rest. However, Xiao Chun did not know about this. After leaving the Yunpeak Prefecture, they headed north. The Yun State capital was located in the north of the Yunpeak Prefecture. It was located in the mountains of the Yun State. As they were not in a hurry, Xiao Chun and the rest were more relaxed. Every time they passed by a town, they would stay for at least a day. At most, they would stay for 2 or 3 days. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. It had to be said that in this half a month, Xiao Chun and the others had indeed experienced many very meaningful things on their way to the capital of Cloud State. They had also fully experienced the prosperity of Taishan continent and the prosperity of martial arts. Moreover, along the way, the relationship between Xiao Chun and Qin Shiru and the other 2 women had deepened. In fact, ever since the three women had followed Xiao Chun, the four of them had rarely had such sweet moments. Although it was called training, most of the time they were traveling. Along the way, Xiao Chun and the rest had visited many famous sceneries. Of course, Xiao Chun had also enjoyed himself with the three women. At least his dream of sleeping together had come true. Moreover, this was the result of Xiao Chen's coaxing and pestering of Qin Shuru and the other two women in a good mood. Apart from his sweetness, of course, they also encountered some threats along the way. For example, they were robbed. However, these things were nothing to Xiao Chun and the rest. They could easily get rid of them. As long as a half-saint did not appear, Xiao Chun and the rest would not be in any danger. Moreover, even if they encountered a half-saint, they could still run away. There was no danger along the way. It was as if they were traveling. Qin Shuru and the three women. On this day, Xiao Chun and the rest finally walked out of the Yunfeng prefecture and came to a green bamboo forest. It was not that Xiao Chun had never seen a bamboo forest before, but it was his first time seeing one of such a large area. Furthermore, not only were the bamboos here tall and straight, but they were also very green in color. Looking at it from the horizon, the boundless green color did indeed make one feel relaxed and happy. What a big bamboo forest! Gu Lingyao sighed sincerely as she snuggled up to Xiao Chun. I heard from the people in the city that this bamboo forest is very famous in the vicinity. It is called the Bamboo Sea. Qin Shuru said, Brother Xiao Chun, let's have a bamboo forest like this where we live in the future, okay? Gu Lingyao said when she heard Qin Shuru's words. Hearing this, Xiao Chun gently patted the little girl's forehead and said, Previously, you wanted the Jade Flower Forest. A few days ago, when we went to Cloud Peak, you said you wanted the Cloud Peak. Now that we see the Bamboo Sea, you say you want the Bamboo Sea. Little girl, are you planning to move the entire Tai Shan continent to your home? Along the way, whenever they saw beautiful scenery, Gu Lingyao would ask Xiao Chun to build one for their home in the future. Xiao Chun was very helpless about this. According to the little girl's idea, when the time came, they would just transform the entire Tai Shan continent and make it their home. Xiao Chun was helpless about Gu Lingyao's unrealistic dream, but he also felt very warm. Compared to the mature Qin Shuru and fairy of 100 flowers, Gu Lingyao was clearly the joy of this family. With her around, there was indeed a lot of joy. Facing the Bamboo Sea, everyone's mood could not help but calm down. However, at this moment, an extremely untimely voice came from afar. Haha, human, let's see where you can run to this time. The owner of the voice was none other than Chiya, who had chased them all the way from Yunfeng County City. After half a month of chasing, they were already out of Yunfeng County. Finally, Chiya caught up with Xiao Chun and the others. Xiao Chen's eyes flashed coldly when he saw Chiya leading hundreds of cultivators towards him from afar. He spoke to Chun Ling and the others in a matter-of-fact tone. It seems that some people really don't know what's good for them. Let's leave this place first. I don't want this bamboo forest to be destroyed by our hands. Xiao Chen's heart was already filled with killing intent at Chiya's appearance. Previously, Xiao Chun had not thought of killing him because he was the chosen of the Supreme Deity sect. After all, the Supreme Deity sect was not to be trifled with. Although the Sacred Palace did not fear the Supreme Deity sect, both sides had the same thought. Without absolute certainty, it was best not to casually start a war. Therefore, Xiao Chun had let Chiya go. However, from the looks of it now, since Chiya was determined to die and had chased them all the way here, Xiao Chun naturally had no need to hold back. Xiao Chun could not bear to see the bamboo forest destroyed because of their battle. Therefore, he led the group and chose to escape, luring Chiya to chase after them. Seeing that Xiao Chun and the others were about to escape, Chiya sneered coldly in his heart. Human, do you think you can still escape this time? Chase after them and stop them. He thought that Xiao Chun and the others had chosen to escape out of fear. However, Chiya clearly did not realize that Xiao Chun and the others had been slowing down along the way, deliberately luring Chiya to chase after them. Otherwise, with the speed of Xiao Chun and the others, How could the ants that Chia had brought catch up to Xiao Chun and the others? One chased while the other fled. Very soon, the two sides rushed out of the bamboo forest. After flying for another 100 miles, Xiao Chun and the others stopped in the air above a dense forest. Then, Chia quickly caught up with several hundred cultivators. The several hundred cultivators that Chia led were truly very diverse. There were God Clan members, Ghost Clan members, and even Beast Clan members among them. Having finally succeeded in killing Xiao Chun, Chia could not help but laugh wildly in his heart. Aha! Human, run, keep running. Do you think you can escape? Today, I'll tear you to pieces. Sigh, the ignorant are fearless. You chased me all the way here from Yunfeng Prefecture City to your death. It looks like if I can't fulfill your wish today, I'll be letting down your determination to die. Xiao Chun sighed softly when he heard Qi Ye's words. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 1001. He didn't want to offend the Supreme God sect, but that didn't mean he was afraid of them. The first time, Xiao Chun had only taught Qi a lesson at the Supreme God sect's branch in Cloud Peak City. He didn't take his life, and he didn't even injure him. He originally thought that the matter would pass like that, but who would have thought that Qi would chase them all the way from Cloud Peak City? They'd even chase them out of Cloud Peak City. He really didn't know how he became the successor of the Supreme God sect with such narrow-mindedness. However, that wasn't something Xiao Chun should consider. Qi had come all the way here to die, and, just as Xiao Chun had said, he had to fulfill his wish this time. Not daring to kill a disciple of the Supreme God sect might be possible for others, but it didn't exist for Xiao Chun. So, as soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun's spatial ring flashed, and the ink dragon sword appeared in his hand. His eyes flickered with killing intent as he faced the several hundred people Qi had brought with him. Come, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. I'd like to see who's the one courting death this time. How dare you speak so arrogantly with just a few of you? I have several hundred experts on my side. Go, kill the men and cripple the women's cultivation. Keep them alive. Qi roared furiously when he heard Xiao Chun's words. Along with his order, the several hundred cultivators from various clans who had chased them all the way here immediately charged towards Xiao Chun's group. Very quickly, they blocked off their path of retreat. Clearly, they wanted to surround and kill Xiao Chun's group here. Hundreds of people heard Qi Ye's words and looked at these people rushing to kill. Xiao Chun smiled disdainfully and said, "When there are too many ants, they can indeed kill an elephant. However, there is a prerequisite, and that is that there must be enough ants. You think you can kill me with just a few hundred people? What a joke." He had already secretly observed these several hundred people. The strongest among them was only at the Dao Emperor realm, and there were only 5 of them. 3 from the God Clan, 1 from the Ghost Clan, and 1 from the Beast Clan. 5 Dao Emperors leading cultivators at the Dao King realm, Dao Transformation realm, and Dao Gate realm wanted to surround and kill him. It was simply a joke. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun slashed out with his sword and displayed the Square Sky Sword Shadow. The Square Sky Sword Shadow was only at the heaven level low level, so its power was not considered Xiao Chun's strongest attack. However, it was more than enough to deal with these warriors with low cultivation. With a slash of the sword shadows that filled the sky instantly enveloped dozens of martial artists. Soon, the sword shadows emitted miserable shrieks. The Dao Gate realm and Dao Transformation realm martial artists were either severely injured or killed by the sword shadows that filled the sky. Xiao Chun made a move. Chun Ling, Long Qing, Qin Shu, 100 Flower Fairy, and Gu Ling Yao made a move as well. Terrifying martial skills bloomed in the sky. At the same time, miserable shrieks rose and fell. This time, Xiao Chun obviously did not hold back. No matter if it was the martial artists from the great clans of the Cloud Peak Mansion or the disciples of the Supreme God sect, Xiao Chun did not fear them at all. He directly fought them with a single strike of his sword. On the other hand, The people that Chia had brought were unable to resist Shao Chun and the others at all. Only the 5 Dao Emperor Realm experts were able to hold on slightly. However, even if they could resist for a moment or two, they were absolutely no match for Shao Chun and the others. What a joke! These 5 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists were only ordinary martial artists. How could they possibly be a match for Shao Chun and the others of the same realm of cultivation? As he faced 2 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists by himself, Shao Chun ceaselessly swung the sword in his hand. He'd already executed the 9 thunderclap swords with his full strength. For a time, the 2 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists fell into a completely disadvantaged position. Moreover, quite heavy injuries had appeared on their bodies. Damn it, they never imagined that Shao Chen's combat strength would actually be so formidable. He was fighting 2 Dao Emperors by himself. Moreover, Shao Chen's cultivation was only at the initial stage of the Dao Emperor realm, and he was 2 realms lower than them. But even then, these 2 Dao Emperors were still not a match for Shao Chen. Based on the direction of the battle, it was only a matter of time before the 2 of them were killed. They were utterly unable to resist Shao Chen's attacks. The terrifying strength and speed of every single stab of his sword caused the 2 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists to grumble incessantly. After merely a little over 100 breaths of time, the 2 of them were already unable to hold on any longer. Killing intent surged from Shao Chen's eyes when he saw this, and he spoke indifferently. All of you followed Qi all the way here. Actually, you're only seeking death. As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Chun slashed out twice in succession. A ray of light that was like a bolt of lightning flashed by, and it instantly beheaded the 2 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists. He'd killed 2 Dao Transformation Realm martial artists with a single strike of his sword. At the same time, Chunling, Long Qing, and Qin Shiru's group of 3 killed the few hundred people that she had brought with her to the point they fled. They originally thought that would be an easy task for a few hundred people to surround and kill a mere 6 people. But who would have imagined that the reality would be the complete opposite? The combat strength that Shao Chen's group of 6 revealed caused these few hundred people to be unable to resist at all. There were a few dozen of them, but they were like pigs waiting to be slaughtered. So, since the beginning of the battle until now, less than 10 minutes had passed since the beginning of the battle, these few hundred people showed signs of fleeing. In their eyes, Shao Chen's group of 6 were devils, absolute devils. Their terrifying combat strength was simply terrifying. They started to cover their heads and flee like rats. At the same time, after he killed the 2 Dao Emperor Realm martial artists, Shao Chun directly locked onto Qia. Qia was stunned. Qia, who was mixed in the crowd, felt a strand of killing intent lock onto him. For a time, his hairs stood on end, and he didn't hesitate to turn around and flee with the others. He originally wanted to surround and kill Shao Chun with the others, but now he'd been reduced to a rat that fled in panic. As he fled with all his might, Qia constantly cursed in his heart. Damn it! Damn it! How can these humans be so strong? As the successor of the Supreme God Sect, Qia naturally had a discerning eye. In his opinion, Shao Chen's group of 6 and Qin Shiru's group of 3 were clearly weaker. But even then, their strength was comparable to the successor of the Supreme God Sect. As for the stronger Shao Chun, Chunling, and Long Qing, in Qia's opinion, they were probably existences on par with the successor of the Supreme God Sect. However, Qia had never imagined that Shao Chen's group of 3 would possess strength comparable to the successor of the Supreme God Sect. Shao Chen did not expect this outcome at all. Seeing that Qia was trying to escape, Shao Chun immediately slashed out with his sword. The tip of the sword flashed past, and Qia, who was running wildly, felt her hair stand on end. She instinctively tilted her head and luckily dodged Shao Chen's sword. However, even though he dodged it, the intense pain still caused Qia to be unable to help but cry out miserably. As it turned out, even though Qia had instinctively tilted his head to avoid being hit in a vital area, Shao Chen's sword had still chopped off one of Qia's ears, begging to be collected, begging to be recommended. Chapter 1002. An ear flew into the air, accompanied by Qi Ya's blood-curdling screams. He covered his cheek with one hand as he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Xiao Chun sliced off one of her ears. Qi had never thought that things would turn out this way. He had thought that leading hundreds of experts to hunt down Xiao Chun and his group of 6 would be a piece of cake. But in the end, these hundreds of experts couldn't even withstand a single blow from Xiao Chen's group. They were like hundreds of pigs being beaten up by Xiao Chen's group. Now, Qi's ear had been cut off by Xiao Chun. His desire to live made Qi forget the anger in his heart. At this moment, Qi only had one thought, and that was to run as far as he could. In his eyes, Xiao Chen's group of 6 were demons. Absolute demons. But now, he was the prospective holy son of the Supreme Sect. Qi had seen with his own eyes that several Supreme Sect disciples had been killed by Xiao Chun with a single slash. Xiao Chun hadn't hesitated to kill the Supreme Sect disciples. His eyelids hadn't even twitched. If Qi still thought that Xiao Chun didn't dare to kill him because he was the prospective holy son of the Supreme Sect, then he would really be hopelessly stupid. He ran for his life, using every ounce of strength he had. On the other side, Xiao Chun shook his head and muttered in disappointment when he saw that his sword had only managed to cut off one of Qi's ears. Did I miss? With that, Xiao Chun slashed out with his sword again. The sharp sword light once again shot towards Qi. As he ran madly, that extremely familiar aura of death once again enveloped Qi. Sensing this familiar aura of death, Qi didn't need to think to know that it was Xiao Chen's attack again. This time, Qi's luck was not as good. The arm that was originally covering her face was directly cut off at the shoulder by Xiao Chun. One ear and one arm had been chopped off by Xiao Chun in quick succession. The intense pain caused Qi Ya's expression to become incomparably ferocious. At this moment, Qi no longer dared to hesitate. The storage ring in her hand flashed, and an ancient jade pendant appeared in her hand. Without any hesitation, Qi endured the intense pain and crushed the jade pendant in her hand. This jade pendant could be said to be Qi Ya's life-saving item. He had paid a huge price to obtain it. The jade pendant was engraved with a speed charm array and a defense charm array, both of which had reached the saint level. Once it was activated, it could increase one's speed by 10 times. Moreover, during the entire process, there was also the protection of the defense charm array, which could withstand several attacks. It could be considered an extremely perfect, life-saving item. Previously, Qi was reluctant to use this jade pendant because she only had this one piece on her. If she used it, Qi would have one less life-saving item in the future. Moreover, this jade pendant was priceless. It was extremely difficult to obtain another piece. Therefore, Qi was reluctant to use it. Even when Xiao Chun chopped off one of her ears, Qi did not use this jade pendant. But now, after her arm was chopped off by Xiao Chun, Qi no longer hesitated. This was because she understood that if she used this life-saving item again, she would most likely be left here by Xiao Chun. Compared to her life, a life-saving item was naturally nothing. After all, if she lost her life, then no matter how many treasures she had, it would all be in vain. The jade pendant shattered. An array of light enveloped Qi. Then, Qi's speed suddenly increased. Her entire body turned into a ray of light and instantly rushed into the distance. Seeing Qi's sudden increase in speed, Xiao Chun let out a soft cry of surprise. Then he slashed out again. The law of force, the law of speed, and the minor perfection sword essence gushed out. Under the enhancement of the law of speed, the sword light attacked Qi at an extremely fast speed. Then, it violently collided with the golden light shield around Qi. The sword hit, but to Xiao Chen's disappointment, this sword was actually unable to break through the golden light shield protecting Qi. At the same time that she successfully blocked Xiao Chen's sword, Qi did not dare to stay any longer. She immediately turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the horizon. She ran madly all the way. When Xiao Chen's sword hit the golden light, Qi almost thought that she was dead for sure. Fortunately, she managed to escape, but even now, she still felt a lingering fear. Therefore, even though she was already far away from the battlefield and could no longer see Xiao Chen's figure, Qi still did not dare to stay. She ran madly all the way. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was to run as far away as possible. In the end, they did not succeed in killing Qi. She still managed to escape. As for the other hundreds of warriors, more than half of them were killed by Xiao Chun and the other 5, and the rest fled in all directions. Soon, the place where Xiao Chun and the other 5 had been was empty. Other than the corpses on the ground and the faint smell of blood in the air, there was no sign that a great battle had just broken out here. Little brother, why did you let Qiyu escape? At this moment, Long Qing, who had just finished the battle, asked Xiao Chun with the same murderous intent on her face. Hearing Long Qing's words, Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, "He used the registration item and escaped. He actually managed to escape. Damn it." Long Qing cursed fiercely. "It's okay. He's just a small fry. So what if he escaped? He's not a threat anyway," Xiao Chun said with a smile. Only a quasi-sage sect's holy son like Xiao Chun could say that the holy son of the supreme divine sect was just a small fry. After all, Qi was the supreme divine sect's holy son. No matter where he went, even if he went to a saint-level sect, he would be treated like a distinguished guest. Although Qi had escaped, Xiao Chun also knew that even if Qi managed to keep his life, he would be a cripple in the future. There was no need to worry about him. If Qi did not have eyes, it would not be too late to kill him the next time they met. It was a very easy battle. However, just as Xiao Chun and the other 5 were about to leave after Qi and the others had escaped, a beastly roar came from the secret order in the distance. Perhaps the smell of blood had attracted the demonic beasts in the secret order. Along with the roar, a huge black python that was hundreds of meters long rushed into the sky from the forest in the distance and rushed toward Xiao Chun and the others. The black python was exuding a boundless aura of blood. Its pair of emotionless, cold eyes stared at Xiao Chun and the others. This black python gave off a boundless chill. However, in the face of this huge black python's attack, Xiao Chun and the others were more concerned about the muscular man standing on top of the black python's head, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 1003. The sudden appearance of the black python and the burly man standing on the head of the black python made Xiao Chun and the others look at each other. Then, they secretly looked at the black python and the burly man who were flying toward them with caution. Although the burly man was in human form, Xiao Chun and the others could still sense that he was a beast race saint. However, they could vaguely sense that he had just broken through to the saint stage. Thus, his aura was still a little weak. Xiao Chun and the others were secretly on their guard. They did not know why a beast race saint had suddenly appeared, so they did not know what he was here for. Just as the beast race saint was getting closer and closer, Chunling's gaze turned to the black python. He frowned slightly and said softly, "Beast slave? Beast slave?" Xiao Chun and the rest asked doubtfully when they heard Chunling's words. They had never heard of this beast slave. It was no wonder. If Chunling was not the reincarnation of a mighty figure, he would not know what a beast slave was. It was common knowledge that as the beast race grew, their cultivation realm and strength would continue to increase, and their intelligence would also undergo a transformation. Just like the high-level demon beasts, not only could they take human form, but their intelligence was also no different from the human race. However, there was a secret technique in the beast race that could destroy a monster's intelligence and make it recognize its master. It would become a monster without intelligence that would only listen to its master's orders. However, this secret technique could only be used by the beast race. The caster's bloodline power and cultivation realm had to be higher than the target in order to succeed. Chunling had never heard of a beast slave, but there was clearly not much time to explain now. After hearing Xiao Chun and the others' questions, he could only give a simple explanation. Simply put, this beast slave is the result of the beast race's efforts. They used a secret technique to force it to recognize their master, and its intelligence has been destroyed. At the same time, the black python had already arrived in front of Xiao Chun and the others with the beast saint on its back. The black python roared. There was no intelligence in its eyes at all. It was just like a wild beast. They looked at the beast race saint standing on the head of the black python. Everyone looked at each other and then heard an indifferent voice from the beast race saint. The beast race and the human race are together? Little girl, your bloodline power is a little strange. As he said that, he slowly looked towards Long Qing. Xiao Chun and the others immediately guessed why he had come. So it was because of Long Qing. It was very likely that Long Qing's Dragon Clan aura had been inadvertently released during the battle, and the Beast Clan saint had sensed it. In fact, most of the time, Long Qing paid a lot of attention to hiding her identity. After all, dragons looked noble and were born emperors, but they were also full of treasures. It could be said that for any race, the pure-blooded dragons had an irresistible temptation. It was not difficult to see this point in the Sky River continent. He hadn't expected that the aura that Long Qing had inadvertently released during the battle would actually attract a saint from the beast race. However, from the looks of it, the saint from the beast race probably hadn't confirmed Long Qing's true identity. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked that question. Xiao Chun took a step forward and said calmly, "I don't think our matter has anything to do with you, Senior. Is there a reason why you're here, Senior?" He could not afford to be careless in the face of Saint. Therefore, Xiao Chun had been secretly keeping his guard up as he spoke. The beast race Saint sneered. "Human race kid, your combat strength is not bad. I saw the battle just now. However, it won't be difficult for me to destroy you if I want to. Cut the crap. Let the little girl come to me and let me take a look." After seeing the battle just now, the beast race saint knew that Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing were all saints. However, even so, the beast race saint was not too afraid. After all, although the holy sons were strong, there were records of holy sons and holy daughters killing half-saints in the North Star boundary. In fact, there were quite a few of them. However, saints and saintesses killing saints had never happened before. Therefore, even though the beast race saint had just broken through to the saint state, he was not too afraid of Xiao Chun and the others. No matter how powerful saints and saintesses were, they could never kill saints unless their cultivation could break through to the half-saint state. Then, they might have a slight chance. Moreover, it would only be able to put up a fight. In just a few sentences, Xiao Chun and the others had already understood the purpose of the beast saint's visit. He felt that Long Qing's bloodline power was very strange. Coupled with the fact that he had just broken through to the saint state, his cultivation was not stable yet. Therefore, the beast race saint urgently needed extremely pure bloodline power to help him stabilize his cultivation. He just happened to meet Long Qing now. In the beast race saint's heart, Long Qing's bloodline power should not be too weak. It was just right for him. Fortunately, the beast race saint did not immediately see through Long Qing's identity. If he knew that Long Qing was a pure-blooded dragon race, he probably would have attacked already. The essence blood of a pure-blooded dragon race saint was extremely attractive to any beast race saint. It was not an exaggeration to say that if the beast race saint could devour Long Qing's essence blood, he would have the possibility of breaking through to the quasi-saint state. At the same time, his bloodline power would undergo a qualitative leap. Now that he understood the beast race saint's intentions, Xiao Qin's expression changed as he transmitted his voice to Chun Ling. "Big brother, you definitely can't hand over second sister." He knew very well what would happen if Long Qing ended up in the beast race saint's hands. Xiao Qin clearly would not agree. Xiao Chun said to the beast race saint in front of him with a cold look in his eyes after the telepathic message ended. "Senior, the three of us are sworn siblings. My second sister is from the beast race. However, it's impossible for us to hand her over to you. Please don't force us. This was a direct rejection of the beast race saint. The beast race saint clearly didn't expect Xiao Chun to reject him, so he immediately laughed out loud. Haha, you saints and saintesses are indeed talented. You have the right to be arrogant for having such cultivation at such a young age. However, you're all too young. There's always a limit to fighting above your level. Cut the crap. I want that little girl. Are you going to hand her over? His attitude was extremely firm. He was determined to personally check Long Qing's bloodline power. Seeing that there was no room for negotiation, Xiao Chun made up his mind and said coldly, No, come at me if you want to fight. You've only just broken through to the saint state. If we really fight, I'll make you pay even if I have to risk my life. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1004. As a member of the Beast Clan, the saint was more sensitive to the power of the Beast Clan's bloodline. His intuition told him that Long Qing's bloodline power would be of great help to him. Therefore, he had to check on Long Qing's bloodline power personally. If it was useful, the saint would devour and refine Long Qing's bloodline power. Xiao Qin replied firmly. It was impossible to hand over Long Qing, even if the other party was a saint. The Beast Clan saint was taken aback when he heard Xiao Qin's reply. However, he soon laughed in anger. Good. You're brave, but you don't know your place. Since you won't hand it over, I'll do it myself. As he spoke, the beast race saint clenched his fist and grabbed at Long Qing. A huge palm formed by spiritual energy grabbed at Long Qing. Xiao Qin's face darkened when he saw this. Do it. They had no other choice. Since that was the case, Xiao Chun and the rest could not allow themselves to be captured. As Xiao Chun shouted, Chunling's storage ring flashed, and a long black blade appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, he slashed at the saint's palm. At the same time, Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, the three ladies, and Long Qing also made their moves. With their combined strength, they finally managed to defeat the spiritual energy giant palm. However, this was only a casual attack from the Beast Clan saint. On the other hand, Xiao Chun and the rest had already given it their all. They successfully blocked the saint's attack. The Beast Clan saint was not angry when he saw this. Instead, he smiled. Not bad, but how many of my attacks can you withstand? As he spoke, the Beast Clan saint attacked again. This time, his attack was stronger than before. Xiao Chun and the rest looked grave. At this moment, Long Qing had no choice but to reveal her bloodline power. Although Xiao Chun and the rest were saints and saintesses, it was still too difficult for them to fight against the saint. Therefore, Long Qing could only try to suppress the Beast Clan saint with her Dragon Clan bloodline. Only then would they have the strength to fight. Terrifying bloodline power surged from Long Qing's body. At the same time, an extremely pure and dense Dragon Clan aura enveloped the Beast Clan saint. After so many years of growth, Long Qing's Dragon Clan bloodline had been constantly recovering. Long Qing's bloodline power was completely different from when she was in the Heavenly Continent. Under the terrifying Dragon Clan aura, the Beast Clan saint's strength was suppressed by at least 40%. He could only unleash around 60% of his strength. This was the terror of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. Even when facing a saint, it could still exert an extremely clear suppression. This was also because Long Qing was only at the Tao Emperor realm. If Long Qing had also reached the Saint realm, she would only need to release her Dragon Clan aura to make the Beast Clan saint kneel and beg for mercy. He would not be able to unleash his strength at all. Dense Dragon Clan aura swept across the sky. The Beast Clan saint was first shocked when he sensed his bloodline power being suppressed. However, he was soon overjoyed and laughed maniacally. Dragon Clan, the bloodline power of a pure-blooded Dragon Clan. I never thought that I would encounter a pure-blooded infant dragon today. Good, he laughed maniacally. There was no doubt that as long as he could devour Long Qing's bloodline power, his bloodline would definitely undergo a complete transformation. He didn't think that he would encounter a pure-blooded infant dragon without the protection of an adult dragon. This was like a free lunch falling from the sky. At that moment, the Beast Saint swore that he would capture Long Qing today, no matter what, and convert her bloodline power into his own. Xiao Chun and the others looked solemn in the face of the Beast Clan Saint's ecstasy. They knew that Long Qing's identity would definitely be exposed. However, they had no other choice. This was the only way to fight a saint. Speaking of which, they were rather lucky that the saint before them was a Beast Clan saint. If it were a saint from another race, perhaps Xiao Chun and the others wouldn't even think about fighting. After all, saints from other races wouldn't be suppressed by Long Qing's Dragon Clan bloodline. Xiao Chun and the others definitely wouldn't be a match for a saint at his peak. The saint was suppressed by Long Qing's bloodline power and could only exert 60% of his strength. It was due to this premise that Xiao Chun and the others had the confidence to fight the Beast Clan saint. The Beast Clan saint's eyes glinted with greed as he stared fixedly at Long Qing. Then, he yelled at the black python at his feet. "Devour them." The black python was a slave beast and had lost its intelligence. It only obeyed the Beast Clan saint's orders. As the Beast Clan saint spoke, the black python roared and charged towards Xiao Chun and the others. Qin Shu and the other two girls took the initiative to meet the black python's attack. The three of them worked together to fight the half-saint black python. Qin Shu and the other two girls were responsible for dealing with the black python, while Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing were responsible for dealing with the Beast Clan saint. Seeing that the black python was being blocked by Qin Shu and the other two girls, the Beast Clan saint took action himself. Because his strength was suppressed this time, the Beast Clan saint did not hold back. He punched out fiercely. Terrifying spiritual energy spread in all directions as the fist radiance smashed towards Xiao Chun and the others like a meteor. It was a full-powered attack. However, compared to usual, the power of this attack was very weak. Even so, Xiao Chun and the others did not dare to be careless in the face of the Beast Clan saint's attack. Holding the black dragon sword in his hand, Xiao Chun swung the sword and performed the 9 thunderclap swords in an instant. At the same time, the law of force, the law of speed, and the small perfection level sword were all raised to the extreme by Xiao Chun at the same time. The blade of the sword slashed and clashed with the aura of the fist. The two collided, but Xiao Chun's blade was quickly broken by the aura of the fist. However, at that moment, a flash of the blade appeared and clashed with the aura of the fist again. Only then did the two auras cancel each other out. Xiao Chun and Chun Ling combined their strength to block the Beast Clan saint's full-powered attack and break through his attack. Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing did not stop. They moved at the same time and charged towards the Beast Clan saint. Seeing the three of them charging over, the Beast Clan saint laughed disdainfully. A firefly dares to compete with the bright moon? Today, I'll let you experience the power of a saint. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 1005. He was well aware of the strength of a saint, and also knew that the saint realm could be said to be the biggest watershed in the cultivation of a martial artist. Without reaching the saint realm, one would forever be an ordinary person. Once one stepped into the saint realm, it was equivalent to transcending the mortal world and entering the divine world. To be honest, if they had any other choice, Xiao Chun and the others would never fight a saint head-on like this because it was simply something only a madman would do. Challenging a saint, this was madness. It was unreasonable. But there was no other choice. Therefore, Xiao Chun and the others could only take the risk. It wasn't that they didn't think of escaping, but the possibility of escaping in front of Saint was even lower. The best way now was to find a way to injure the Beast Race Saint, and then find an opportunity to escape. Xiao Chun and the others took the initiative to attack the Saint. In such a situation, the more afraid they were of death, the faster they would be. It was even more so for them to escape. They could only fight head-on and find an opportunity to escape. While Xiao Chun and the others were fighting fiercely with the beast race saint, in a small city in the Cloud Prefecture, several women in casual clothes were sitting in a private room in a restaurant. These people were none other than Xiao Sheng and the other patriarchs and sacred sovereigns of the sacred palace. The group was also strolling around the Taishan continent. After destroying the Heavenly Ghost sect, Xiao Sheng and the others also left the Yun Peak Mansion at a much faster speed than Xiao Chun and the others. Along the way, Xiao Sheng and the others had a better understanding of the Taishan continent. At the same time, they felt that the Tiana continent and the Tianshan continent were small places. After personally witnessing the vastness of the Taishan continent and the vastness of the North Star boundary, Xiao Sheng and the others' blood was rekindled. They were all quasi-saints and saints. The North Star boundary was now the stage that truly belonged to them and the sacred palace. The group was drinking and chatting when suddenly, a golden light from a voice transmission talisman directly entered Xiao Sheng's mind. Mengjie asked when she saw this. What's wrong? Who is in trouble? Someone contacted Xiao Sheng with a voice transmission talisman. Naturally, everyone thought that it was a disciple of the sacred palace who was asking for help from Xiao Sheng. As expected, Xiao Sheng's face darkened when he heard Mengjie's words. Xiao Chun and the others are in trouble. Xiao Chun? Everyone's expression turned solemn when they heard this. If it was any other disciple, it would be fine because even if something did happen, it would not affect the sacred palace at all. However, it just so happened that Xiao Chun and the others were in trouble. This made Xiao Sheng and the others present not dare to be careless. After all, Xiao Chun, Chun Ling, and Long Qing were all chosen to the sacred palace. If something happened to them, it would be a huge blow to the divine palace. In the voice transmission talisman, Xiao Chun simply said that they had been intercepted by a beast race saint and gave them a rough location. He did not say anything else. Xiao Sheng did not dare to hesitate when he received Xiao Chen's message. He immediately stood up and said to everyone present, Mengjie and I will be leaving first. You all wait in the Cloud Plains capital. Xiao Sheng and Mengjie were both quasi-saints, so they were much faster than saints. Therefore, Xiao Sheng did not allow Saint Mu Tian and the others to accompany them. Instead, he told them to wait in the Cloud Plains capital. Originally, they were planning to head to the Cloud Plains capital next. Before Saint Mu Tian and the others could reply, Xiao Sheng and Mengjie tore open a crack in the space before them. The two of them stepped into the crack and disappeared in an instant. Xiao Chun and the others could be in danger at any moment, so Xiao Sheng and Mengjie hurried towards the location Xiao Chun had told them about with all their might. They had already sent a message to Xiao Sheng and the others. However, before Xiao Sheng and Mengjie arrived, they still needed Xiao Chun and the others to hold on. The battle continued. The three of them besieged a beast race saint. Moreover, the beast race saint was still being severely suppressed by Long Qing's bloodline power. He was only able to unleash 60% of his battle prowess. Even so, Xiao Chun and the others were having a difficult time. The most troublesome part was that Xiao Chun and the others were unable to break through the beast race saint's defenses. Not only did saints possess devastating offensive power, but their defenses were also ridiculously powerful. At the very least, it was very difficult for cultivators below the saint realm to break through a saint's defenses. If they couldn't even break through a saint's defenses, it meant that their attacks couldn't threaten the saint at all. In that case, how were they supposed to fight? After an intense battle, the beast race saint basically chose to ignore all of Xiao Chun and the others' attacks. If they couldn't break through his defenses, so what if he took some of their attacks head-on? Here, he didn't have to worry about dodging or defending, so he could naturally attack without holding back. As a result, Xiao Chun and the others were unable to pose any threat to the beast race saint. On the other hand, the beast race saint's attacks were difficult for Xiao Chun and the others to block. Every time they faced an attack from the beast race saint, Xiao Chun and the others needed at least two of them to block it. This made them very passive. Brother, we can't continue like this. We can't hold on for much longer. quickly think of a way to break through his defenses. In the intense battle, Long Qing had a smear of blood at the corner of her mouth. She transmitted her voice to Xiao Chun sternly. Xiao Chen's lips twitched when he heard his sister Long Qing's words. Mother asterisk asterisk cur. Think of a way? What I think of? Unless I can instantly increase my offensive power by several times, that'll be the only way to break through his defenses. As long as I can break through his defenses, even if it's just a tiny bit, it'll change the situation. Xiao Chen thought to himself helplessly. All of a sudden, he had a flash of inspiration. His attack power had increased by several times. Xiao Chen immediately thought of an idea. It was obviously impossible to increase one's attack power by several times in an instant by oneself. However, there were 3 people on Xiao Chen's side at the moment. As long as they could do it at the same time, Xiao Chun and his sister would be able to attack at the same time and accurately hit the same spot. Then, when the 3 of them attacked at the same time, their offensive power would naturally increase by several times. At this thought, Xiao Chun transmitted his voice to Chun Ling and Long Qing and told them his idea. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chun Ling and Long Qing pondered for a few moments. Then, Chun Ling said, "Third brother, the difficulty of landing our attacks at the same spot at the same time without any deviation." Upon hearing Chun Ling's words, Xiao Chun naturally knew what he wanted to say. However, the current situation clearly left them with no other choice. Hence, without waiting for Chun Ling to finish speaking, Xiao Chun directly interrupted, "Big brother, is there any other way now that things have developed to this stage? If we don't break through this layer of tortoise shell, we won't stand a chance at all. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." End of chapter. Chapter 1006. If they couldn't even break through the other party's defense, everything would be for naught. Xiao Chen knew that very well. Therefore, after hearing Chun Ling's concerns, Xiao Chun said resolutely, if they wanted to find a chance to escape, they had to break through the beast race saint's tortoise shell. Chun Ling didn't say anything else after hearing Xiao Chen's words. He knew that Xiao Chun was right. No matter how difficult it was, they had to find a way to break through the beast race saint's defense. The beast race saints sneered as the 3 of them conversed telepathically. The dragon race bloodline can indeed suppress my strength, but so what? You can't even break through my defense. Even if I don't retaliate and just stand there and let you hit me, what can you do? His words were filled with disdain. Evidently, the beast race saint understood that as well. With his self-saint level defense, he was already in an undefeatable position. Although his attack power was greatly weakened by Long Qing's bloodline suppression, his defense alone was enough to exhaust Xiao Chun and the other 2 to death. Therefore, the beast race saint was extremely relaxed from the beginning to the end. He wasn't nervous at all, even though he was suppressed by Long Qing's bloodline power. Xiao Chun and the other 2 looked at each other discreetly when they heard the beast race saint's words. Their eyes flashed with determination. The 3 of them were sworn siblings and had been together since they were in the Danyang region. Apart from having deep feelings for each other, they naturally had a tacit understanding as well. Therefore, the 3 of them knew what to do based on each other's expressions. At the same time, they prepared to attack. Xiao Chun slowly pointed his finger and used his strongest attack, the Chungying sword finger. Seeing Xiao Chun use the Chungying sword finger, the beast race saint had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, he sneered. "I've already said that even if I stand here and let you attack me, what can you do?" Perhaps he was overconfident, but the beast saint had basically let his guard down. Perhaps he believed that Xiao Chun and the others were no threat to him at all. That was indeed the case. If it was just Xiao Chun alone, he would not be able to pose any threat to the saint. However, as soon as the saint finished speaking, Xiao Chun used the shadow-bearing sword finger. At the same time, Chun Ling and Long Qing used their strongest attacks as well. Chun Ling raised the black blade high above his head and fiercely slashed downwards. A black blade light streaked across the horizon. At the same time, Long Qing transformed into his original form. A green dragon that was not any weaker than the black python appeared in the horizon. The dragon's roar shook the heavens, and a green light shot out from Long Qing's mouth. A black saber ray, a black sword ray, and a green ray of light attacked the beast race saint at the same time. The beast race saint's expression changed drastically when he saw that the three of them were attacking at the same time and that they were all targeting his chest. He was not afraid of one person's attack, but when the three of them combined their attacks, the beast race saint could not help but feel shocked. However, due to his carelessness earlier, the beast race saint had lost the ability to dodge. He was destined to pay the price for his disdain. The three attacks hit the beast race saint's chest at the same time. From afar, it looked like the three attacks had fused into one. Under the combined attacks of the three, the beast race saint's indestructible defense was finally broken. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was knocked back several steps. Xiao Chun and the others were overjoyed to have successfully broken through the beast race saint's defense. Xiao Chun roared, ignoring the large amount of spiritual energy he had consumed. Go, don't give him a chance to catch his breath. Xiao Chun took the lead and charged toward the beast race saint. At the same time, Chun Ling and Long Qing followed by his side. They finally broke through the tortoise shell. Xiao Chun and the other two's tacit understanding was one of the reasons why they were able to succeed. At the same time, the beast race saint's disdain and carelessness was also a key reason. If he had been more serious when facing Xiao Chun and the other two, Xiao Chun and the other two's attacks might not have been able to break through his defense so easily. However, there was no point in saying that now. His defenses had been breached, and Xiao Chun and the other two didn't give him any chance to catch his breath. They charged at him like he was a drowning dog and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with him. Without the protection of the tortoise shell, the beast race saint couldn't ignore the attacks of Xiao Chun and the others anymore. Therefore, when he faced Xiao Chun and the other two's attacks again, he didn't dare to face Xiao Chun and the other two's attacks head-on. Instead, he could only focus on defending and dodging. Both of their attacks posed a threat to each other, and with the addition of Long Qing's bloodline suppression, Xiao Chun and the other two were able to take advantage of this opportunity to turn the tables on the beast tribe holy beast. Damn it! Damn it! I want all of you dead. I want all of you dead. The beast race saint didn't expect to be forced into this state by Xiao Chun and the other twos. He snarled as he fought with the three of them. In his opinion, even though Xiao Chun and the other twos were holy sons and holy daughters, they were still too inexperienced compared to a saint. However, it was precisely these three inexperienced brats who had forced him into a desperate situation. As the battle continued, Xiao Chun and the other two's injuries continued to worsen, but at the same time, the beast saint also had many wounds on his body. Sword and blade wounds appeared on his body, which meant that he was no longer invincible. Xiao Chun and the other two's attacks had the possibility of injuring him. The battle continued. As time passed, the beast saint no longer dared to underestimate Xiao Chun and the other two. He fought with all his might against Xiao Chun and the other two. It was also at that moment that the beast race saint finally realized how difficult it was to deal with Xiao Chun and the other two's group. The holy sons and holy daughters were indeed only outstanding talents of the younger generation and were still far from being saints. But since they could become holy sons and holy daughters, they couldn't possibly be ordinary people. At that moment, the beast race saint fell into a tough battle. Xiao Chun had pushed the tempered battle body to its limits. His body shone in a dazzling golden radiance, and his terrifying physical body left the beast race saint flabbergasted. He couldn't imagine how a human could cultivate such a terrifying physical body. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 1007. Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Long Qing were all peak existences among the chosen. Xiao Chen's tempered battle body was unparalleled, while Chun Ling, as the reincarnation of a powerhouse, had all sorts of tricks up his sleeve. As for Long Qing, as a pure-blooded dragon, her terrifying bloodline gave the Beast Saint immense pressure. As the four of them engaged in an intense battle, the Beast Saint was unable to gain any advantage. He felt extremely frustrated when faced with Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Long Qing's attacks. To think that a saint like him would actually be forced into such a state by three young chosen. If news of this were spread, he would probably become the laughingstock of the world. However, while the Beast Saint was frustrated, Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Long Qing's situation was not too good either. Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Long Qing were already completely exhausted from being able to fight a saint until now. Most of their spiritual energy had been depleted, and their injuries were not light. During the intense battle, Chun Ling transmitted his voice to Xiao Chun and Long Qing. Second sister, third brother, we can't continue like this. He's a saint after all. We can't afford to waste time. We should find an opportunity to escape. Although they could injure the saint, it was impossible to kill him. Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Long Qing knew this very well. After all, a saint's vitality was just too great. It was very difficult to kill a saint above their level. Xiao Chun and Long Qing nodded slightly when they heard Chun Ling's words. The two of them knew this as well, but they still needed to find an opportunity to escape. At the very least, they had to think of a way to heavily injure the Beast Saint. Otherwise, they would not be able to escape at all. Xiao Chun thought to himself as he searched for an opportunity to escape. He did not know if Xiao Shang had received his transmission, and when would he be able to arrive. If Xiao Shang could arrive in time, the matter would be resolved. However, Xiao Chun could not place all his hopes on Xiao Shang. He still had to be prepared. Otherwise, if Xiao Shang could not make it in time, they would be doomed. They could not care less about the little spiritual energy they had left. The three of them attacked, even more ferociously. They wanted to heavily injure the Beast Saint as quickly as possible and create an opportunity for the others to escape. In the face of Xiao Chun and the other two's resistance, the Beast Race Saint had clearly guessed what they were thinking. He suppressed the anger in his heart and yelled with murderous intent as he fought fiercely against the three of them. You want to escape after heavily injuring me? Wishful thinking. Today, I will exhaust you all to death even if I have to. The Beast Race Saint didn't expect his defenses to be breached. But even so, he still had the upper hand. Just as he'd said, as a saint, he could exhaust Xiao Chun and the others to death. The Beast Saint wasn't in a hurry when he figured that out. So long as he could persist until Xiao Chun and the others exhausted their spiritual energy, then he would have no choice but to surrender obediently and become fish on the chopping board. Actually, Xiao Chun and the others' performance was astounding for them to be able to achieve this during their first battle with the saint. At the very least, they had never heard of a saint or saint who could force a saint to such an extent while they were still at the Tao Emperor realm. Of course, there were many objective reasons why they were able to accomplish this. Firstly, the Beast Saint had just broken through to the saint realm, so his cultivation wasn't stable yet. His strength was much inferior to those veteran saints. Secondly, the Beast Saint had always been suppressed by the energy of Long Qing's bloodline, so he was unable to fully utilize his strength. Combined with these two reasons, Xiao Chun and the others were able to keep the Beast Saint locked in battle for such a long time. Otherwise, they would have probably been captured a long time ago. He made up his mind to exhaust Xiao Chun and the others to death, even if he had to exhaust them. After he figured that out, the Beast Saint changed his strategy. He didn't strive to determine the outcome of the battle, and he started to defend instead. He wanted to exhaust Xiao Chun and the others to death. So long as he could persist until Xiao Chun and the others exhausted their spiritual energy, then it would be a victory. How could Xiao Chun and the others not know what the Beast Saint was thinking when they sensed the change in the Beast Saint? At the same time, Qin Shu and the other two women were fighting the Black Python. Although they were also in a fierce battle, their situation was clearly better than Xiao Chun and the others. After all, although the Black Python was powerful, it was only a half-step saint. Qin Shru and the other two women shouldn't have a problem dealing with it. It was just that it would be difficult for them to kill it in a short period of time. The three women weren't in danger for the time being, but Xiao Chun and the others were a little anxious. They couldn't drag this out any longer. If they did, it would be even more difficult to escape. When their spiritual energy was exhausted, it would be impossible to escape even if they wanted to. They wanted to find an opportunity to escape as soon as possible, but the Beast Saint didn't give Xiao Chun and the others a chance at all. He firmly entangled Xiao Chun and the others, not giving them the slightest chance to escape. Under this entanglement, Xiao Chun and the others had no choice but to attack. Seeing that their spiritual energy was about to be exhausted, their expressions became solemn. The battle had lasted for a few hours. At this time, Xiao Chun and the others' auras began to become chaotic. Clearly, it was a sign that their spiritual energy was about to be exhausted. The beast race saint sneered when he sensed the changes in the three of them. Your spiritual energy is about to be exhausted. Without spiritual energy, no matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to do anything. Just surrender obediently. The beast saint spoke in a relaxed tone, as if he had already seen victory. After such a long, fierce battle, Xiao Chun and the others finally exhausted their spiritual energy. In this regard, Xiao Chun and the others didn't reply. At this time, the three of them didn't have any good ideas. In the face of an absolute difference in strength, all plans seemed so pale and powerless. It seemed that there was no hope. Xiao Chun looked at the Beast Saint and said coldly, "We are the saints of a quasi-sage sect. How dare you attack us? Aren't you afraid that the quasi-sage supreme venerables of my sect will hunt you down?" Xiao Chun had no choice but to use the sacred palace to stall for time and wait for Xiao Sheng's rescue. Upon hearing that Xiao Chun and the others were disciples of a quasi-sage sect, the Beast Saint's expression changed slightly. After this fierce battle, he actually believed Xiao Chun's words. After all, it was impossible for the saints of a saint-grade sect to have the combat strength of Xiao Sheng and the others. But so what? It was the dragon race bloodline. The thought of this made the Beast Saint's heart burn with passion. For the sake of the dragon race bloodline. So what if he was hunted down by a quasi-sage sect? At most, he could just hide. The North Star boundary was so huge. No matter how strong a quasi-sage sect was, it wouldn't be easy to find someone in the North Star boundary. So what if it's a quasi-sage sect? I will kill you, take away the dragon race child, and hide anywhere. What can a quasi-sage sect do to me? The Beast Saint made up his mind and replied coldly, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.